Hello! Welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this week's short story, The Birthday Party, by Olivia Julius. Chapter 1: The Invite. Everyone says I'm weird because I play with girls at recess. Not mean weird, but you know, that kind of look boys give when they think you've broken some secret boy rule. The truth is, I don't care much for football. I tried it once in 2nd grade, and I got tackled so hard I couldn't breathe for, like, a whole minute. Plus, the other boys shout too much. And sometimes they smell. So, I play on the playground with the girls. I hang out mostly with Emily, who's been my best friend since kindergarten. She's smart and funny and really good at drawing cats. Our little group is me, Emily, Madison, Zoe, and Harper. They're all awesome. And yeah, I'm the only boy, but that's fine. Mostly. I mean, I don't paint my nails or anything. I know how that would look. I just do the fun stuff, swinging as high as we can, pretending the mulch is lava, and once, we tried to build a fairy village out of sticks and dandelions. That one actually looked pretty cool. Today was Monday, which already made it a bit terrible. The lunchroom spaghetti tasted like wet paper and I forgot my math homework in my locker. But then, after recess, Emily handed me this pink envelope with sparkly stickers on it. "It's my birthday party invite," she said, smiling big. "You better come." I looked at the envelope like it might bite me. Is it a sleepover?" She shook her head. "Only for the girls. You can come to the barbecue and scavenger hunt and games before that." Oh! I felt kind of relieved. "Okay. Sounds cool." She tilted her head. "You've never been to a girl's birthday party, huh?" I shook my head. "Nope. Not unless you count when my cousin turned 5 and we had cupcakes shaped like unicorns." Emily laughed. "Well, this one's gonna be way better." She always says stuff like that, like she's sure everything will go perfectly. That's one of the reasons I like being her friend. I stuffed the invite in my backpack before anyone could see it. When I walked to the bus later, Jake and Ryan were tossing a football back and forth. Ryan saw me and shouted, "Hey Noah! You finally switching sides and coming to play with the boys?" I just kept walking and said, "Maybe next time." But I didn't mean it. I waited until Mrs. Garland wasn't looking, then slowly slid the envelope out of my backpack and opened it under my desk. The glittery stickers got stuck to the paper a little, but I peeled them back carefully. Inside was a folded card with rainbows and balloons and a cartoon girl with a big cake. I flipped it open and read. "You're invited to Emily's 11th birthday bash. Saturday at 2 p.m, games, barbecue, and fun. Sleepover starts at 6 p.m, girls only best dress contest. Winner gets a prize." I stared at that line for a long time, best dress contest. At first, I thought maybe it meant, like, dress your best. Like a fancy shirt or something. But there was a little picture next to it, 3 cartoon girls in sparkly dresses, one holding a tiara. Nope! Definitely not about button-up shirts. I looked around the classroom, just to make sure nobody saw me reading it. Everyone was copying vocabulary words off the whiteboard. I slouched a little lower in my chair. Was there a boy version of the contest? Like, best shirt or best hat or something? But then I remembered, I was the only boy invited. Everyone else was staying for the sleepover. Everyone else was a girl. I made a mental note to ask Emily at recess. Maybe there was something else planned for me. Or maybe I'd just help with judging? That could be kind of fun. Then, this weird idea floated into my head, real quiet, like a whisper. "What if you wore a dress?" I shook it off fast. I mean, no way, right? Boys don't wear dresses. And besides, I already didn't play football at recess. People thought I was weird enough. But still, Emily always said her dresses were comfortable. And fun. And I had seen some that were kind of cool looking, not that I ever told anyone that. I folded the invitation back up and stuffed it deep in my backpack, like maybe that would shove the thought away too. Only it didn't. Recess couldn't come fast enough. As soon as we hit the playground, I made a beeline for Emily. She was already at the swings with Madison and Zoe, trying to see who could go higher without jumping off. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Quick question about your party." Emily hopped off her swing and grinned at me. "Yeah? So, that best dress contest," I said, rubbing the back of my neck. "That's for girls only, right?" She raised one eyebrow like she was trying to figure out if I was joking or not. "Well, yeah." Then she smiled the kind of smile that meant she was about to say something completely unpredictable. "Unless you want to wear a dress." Before I could say anything, Zoe spun around. "Ooh! You could wear my purple one! It has glitter on the bottom and a sash." "No way," Madison chimed in, giggling. "He should wear mine! It has pockets! Dresses with pockets are like, the best thing ever!" Harper came running over from the jungle gym, already laughing. "Wait, is Noah gonna wear a dress? Can I do his hair?" I held up my hands like I was stopping traffic. "Whoa, guys! No! Definitely not!" They all burst out laughing, not in a mean way, but like it was the funniest thing they'd heard all day. Emily leaned against the swing set, still smiling. "I was just teasing," she said, "but hey, if you ever did one too, I think you'd look great in purple." I rolled my eyes but couldn't help smiling a little. That's just how they were, loud and silly and kind of impossible to keep up with. But still, I felt this weird squirmy feeling in my chest. Not because they laughed. I knew they didn't mean anything bad. It was just, I didn't really know what I would wear. I didn't want to be in a dress, but I didn't want to be left out, either. I kicked at the mulch and mumbled, "I'll just wear a cool t-shirt or something." Emily nodded. "Sounds good to me. You'll still get to do the scavenger hunt in games. That's the best part anyway." She wasn't wrong. But the way the other girls had all jumped in, offering me their dresses, still buzzed in my head like bees. And part of me kind of wished there was a contest I could actually join. Chapter 2 Stepsister. When I got home from school, the house was weirdly quiet. That usually meant one of two things: either Mom was working late again, or Shelby had claimed the living room like it was her royal court and everyone else had been banished. Today, it was definitely the second one. I dropped my backpack by the door and headed toward the kitchen, but I could already hear the laughter, Shelby's high school laugh, the kind that sounded fake and dramatic, like something from one of her makeup tutorial videos. "Seriously, Connor," she said, dragging his name out like it was made of bubblegum. "You're so funny." Her boyfriend, this week's boyfriend, was lounging on the couch like he lived there. He had a buzz cut, 3 bracelets that looked like they came from a beach shop, and a varsity jacket with Ridgeview football on the sleeve. "Hey," I muttered as I walked past. "Yo," Connor said without looking away from his phone. He flipped it sideways and started playing some loud, bass thumpy game I couldn't even recognize. Shelby rolled her eyes at me. "Didn't know it was Bring Your Brother Home Day." "That's every day," I said. She smirked. "Tragic." Shelby's been my stepsister for about 6 months now. Mom married her dad right after Christmas. She's in 10th grade, wears eyeliner like a superhero mask, and thinks she's too cool to breathe the same air as anyone under the age of 16. Also, she's had 4 boyfriends since January. Connor made number 5. At this rate, I joked to Emily once, Shelby would run out of boys before summer break. Today's edition, Connor, was apparently the kicker for the high school football team. I only knew that because Shelby told everyone at dinner last week, twice, and then made a big deal about how kicking takes more skill than people think. I didn't say anything then, but come on! It's kicking! I do that when I'm annoyed at my locker. I grabbed a juice box from the fridge and tried to sneak past the couch without getting pulled into whatever fake flirting mess was happening. No such luck. "What you got there, little dude?" Connor asked. "Apple juice? Nice." I nodded. "Yep. Classic," he said, as if I'd just made a gourmet beverage choice. "I used to be a juice guy too." Shelby laughed way too hard. "You're still a juice guy. You literally brought Capri Sun to the beach. Capri Sun's elite, Connor said, with a completely serious face. And that's when I knew, this guy was not going to last the week. I escaped to my room and shut the door, flopping onto my bed. I pulled the party invitation out of my backpack again and stared at the cartoon girls in their sparkly dresses. Down the hall, Shelby turned up her music so loud the walls thumped. Sometimes it felt like I was the only normal person in this whole house. I was about to shove the invitation back in my backpack when I heard footsteps pounding down the hall. "Hey, Shrimp, what's this?" Shelby's voice called out, a second before she barged into my room without knocking, as usual. She had the envelope in her hand. I must have dropped it on the way in. Or maybe it slipped out. Either way, she'd found it, and now it was too late. "Give it back," I said, reaching for it. But Shelby was already dancing out of reach, waving it in the air like a trophy. "Aw, Noah got invited to a girl's birthday party," she sang, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "That is just adorable!" I lunged again, but she stepped back, I scanning the card. "Let's see here. Games, barbecue, sleepover, oh wait, not for you. Sleepovers girls only." She snorted. "Wow! Brutal! Knock it off, Shelby," I muttered, feeling my ears start to burn. Connor poked his head around the doorway, chewing gum like it was his job. "Dude," he said, "a girl's birthday party? That's like peak elementary school lame." Shelby turned to him so fast he nearly dropped his gum. "Shut up, Connor! Noah has more girls inviting him places than you've ever had text you back." Connor blinked. "Okay, fair." She went back to the invitation, I squinting as she read. Then suddenly, her whole face lit up with fake excitement. "Best dress contest! Oh my gosh, Noah, you gonna wear a tiara? Maybe some glitter heels? Should we go shopping? I think I saw a princess costume at the mall with your name on it." "Give it!" I shouted, grabbing the card from her before she could finish. She was still laughing as I slammed the door and escaped into the one place I could hide. Inside my room, I sat down on the bed, heart thumping, and looked at the card again. The glittery girls on the front didn't look like they were laughing at me. But now I kind of felt like they were. Chapter 3, The Attic. I was halfway through my second round of Alien Invasion on my tablet when there was a soft knock on my bedroom door. "What?" I called, not really wanting to deal with round 2 of the Shelby Comedy Hour. "It's me," she said. "Don't panic. I'm not here to steal your diary or whatever." I opened the door a crack. She stood there with her arms crossed and a bag of pasta in one hand. "I'm making dinner. Parents are working late, and if we leave it to you, we'll be eating microwaved corn dogs again." "Hey," I said, pretending to be offended. "I happen to be a corn dog expert." She rolled her eyes. "You're a disaster. Get ready for spaghetti." As she turned to go, I hesitated, then asked, "Wait! Is your boyfriend still here?" "No," she said, without looking back. "I think I wounded his pride when I said you know more girls than him." I snorted. "He gonna be okay?" She shrugged. "He'll survive. Probably go cry into a Gatorade bottle or something." A few minutes later, after I had changed into an old hoodie and washed my hands, I heard her voice again, this time from my doorway. She was holding a wooden spoon and had a dab of sauce on her cheek. "Hey," she said, less loud this time. "Quick question." "What now?" I asked, but not in a mean way. She stepped into the room and sat right down on the edge of my bed like it was the most normal thing in the world. "That contest," she said. "At the party. The dress one. Do you want to do it?" I stared at her. "Why would I want to do that?" "I dunno," she said, stirring the air with the spoon. "You seemed kinda bummed when I made fun of it earlier." I didn't say anything right away. Finally, I shrugged. "It's kinda tempting, I guess. I mean, everyone else gets to do it. But I don't even have a dress. And even if I did, I probably look stupid. Shelby smiled slowly, her real smile, not the fake one she uses when taking selfies. "Wait here," she said, standing up. "Don't move." I watched as she walked down the hall. She passed her room, which was messy even by tornado standards, and headed up the stairs that led to the attic. I stepped out of my room and peeked around the corner just in time to see her pull the attic ladder down with a click-clack and disappear into the dark above. I waited a whole 30 seconds before curiosity got the better of me. The attic stairs creaked under my feet as I climbed up, ducking my head as the ceiling sloped in. Shelby was already there, in the middle of the dusty space, dragging a giant plastic storage bin across the wooden floor. Her phone flashlight lit the edges of cardboard boxes stacked high with labels like Christmas, photo stuff, and Shelby, old junk. "Need help?" I asked. She jumped a little. "Geez, ninja much?" I stepped over an old lamp and a plastic reindeer. "What are you doing?" "I'm looking for magic," she said dramatically, then added, "or, you know, childhood fashion." She popped the lid off the box and started digging through it. Old notebooks, a sparkly belt, a lopsided tiara. Then, under a layer of tissue paper, she pulled out a swirl of bright fabric. "Ta-da!" she said, holding up a royal blue dress with a sleeveless top and a poofy tulle skirt that sparkled even in the dusty light. I blinked. "Oh! That's really nice, but I'm, like, 10 inches shorter than you." Shelby gasped and clutched her chest. "Are you saying I'm huge?" "No! I mean, now! You're taller now! That's all!" She grinned. "Relax, genius! These were mine from when I was your age. Dad never throws anything out. Pretty sure half this attic is just boxes of stuff from when I still had a lisp." She shook the dress out and held it up in front of me. "You totally won in this," she said, turning it side to side. "Royal blue brings out your eyes." I rolled my eyes. "You sound like a shampoo commercial." She stuck out her tongue and kept sorting through the box. "There's probably more in here too, different colors, accessories, maybe even those glitter shoes Mom hated." I looked at the dress again. It sparkled softly, like it had memories stitched into it. And for the first time, the idea of wearing it didn't sound completely crazy. Shelby turned her attention to another box, giving me just enough space to think. I looked down at the dress in my hands. The fabric was cool and soft, the kind of smooth that your fingers just sort of glide over. The tulle skirt bounced gently with every movement, like it had a life of its own. It smelled faintly like old attic and something sweet, maybe the perfume Shelby used to steal from her mom. I waited until she was distracted trying to untangle a pair of butterfly wings from a mess of beaded necklaces. "I'm gonna try it," I mumbled, more to myself than to her. She waved a hand without looking. "Go for it! I won't peek! Girl Scout honor!" There was a full-length mirror propped against one of the attic walls. I stepped behind a stack of boxes, took off my hoodie and t-shirt, and slowly slipped the dress over my head. It was a little loose in the shoulders, and I had to wiggle a bit to get it to sit right, but once it was on, it felt light. The silky fabric tickled my arms and the tulle brushed against my legs like a whisper. It didn't feel like any of the clothes I usually wore, it didn't feel like a costume either. It felt strange, but not bad. I stepped out from behind the boxes and looked at myself in the mirror. There I was, same old me, just in a dress. My cheeks were red, my hair was messy, and the dress bunched a little weird in the back. But I didn't look silly. I just looked like me, standing in a swirl of blue and glitter. "I can't wear this out," I said, quietly. "Mom would never let me." Shelby finally turned to look, her eyes landing on me in the mirror. She didn't laugh or smirk or tease. She just nodded. "She might surprise you," she said. "But yeah! Maybe not yet." I turned back to the mirror, smoothing the skirt. Maybe not yet. But now I wasn't so sure I never would. I was still looking at myself in the mirror when Shelby stepped closer, arms folded, head tilted. "You know what you need now?" she said. I blinked, unsure if I wanted to know the answer. Tights, she said matter-of-factly. And Mary Jane's. I turned to her, wide-eyed. Mary what now? Mary Jane's, she repeated. The shoes. The shiny ones with the strap? You look way more put together. Can't rock that dress and wear your nasty sneakers. It's a fashion crime. I looked down at my socks, which were a little mismatched and had holes at the toes. I don't think Mom's gonna drive me to the mall to buy girl shoes, I muttered. Shelby shrugged. She doesn't have to. We'll go. I'll figure it out. There's a thrift store near the bus stop. I bet we can find everything you need. I stared at her. Why are you being nice? She smirked. Don't get used to it. I just don't want you showing up to that contest looking like a glittery disaster. I laughed to spite myself. But under the joke, I felt something tighten in my chest, like this strange mix of nerves and excitement and maybe even a little hope. The dress wasn't just some silly joke anymore. It was becoming real. And so was the idea of maybe, just maybe, being part of the contest after all. Shelby checked the time on her phone and let out a small groan. Ugh, I've gotta get back to the pasta before it turns into mush. Dinner in 15, she said, heading toward the attic stairs. I started reaching for the hem of the dress. Okay, I'll change real quick. But she paused at the top of the ladder and turned back to look at me. Hold up, she said. Don't take it off yet. I blinked. Why not? Because, she said, walking back toward me, you need to wear it for a little while. Get used to how it feels. You can't just throw it on for the first time at a party with people watching. I frowned. But what if someone comes home? She gave me a reassuring look. Mom and my dad won't be back until like, 8. You've got hours. Just wear it for a bit. Walk around. Sit down. See how it moves. Trust me, if you're gonna do this, you don't want the first time to be at Emily's party in front of 5 girls and a piñata. I hesitated. The idea of staying in the dress any longer made my stomach twist. But part of me understood what she meant. You really think it'll help? I asked. She nodded. It helped me. First time I wore heels to school, I practiced walking in them every night for a week. Otherwise, I would have eaten pavement by second period. That made me laugh a little. Okay. Fine. But only until dinner. Shelby winked and turned back to the ladder. Fair enough. Own it, Blue Bell. As she disappeared down the stairs, I looked back at the mirror. The dress still felt strange. But maybe, not quite as strange as before. The ladder creaked a little as I climbed down, careful not to step on the hem of the dress. The skirt rustled softly around my legs, and the tulle brushed against my knees with every movement. It felt light, really light. Like walking through air. By the time I stepped into the kitchen, Shelby was already stirring a pot of sauce like she was auditioning for a cooking show. She glanced over her shoulder, then did a little double take. There he is, she said, grinning. Floating down the stairs like a fancy ghost. It's kinda breezy, I admitted, pulling at the skirt. Welcome to the magic of skirts, she said. Now, come here. Lesson 1. I raised an eyebrow. Lesson 1? She pointed to one of the kitchen chairs. Sit. I sat. Wrong, she said immediately. What? I'm just sitting. Exactly, she said. But in a dress, you can't just plop down like a dude in gym shorts. You've gotta sit like you've got some sense. Smooth it under you first, then knees together, no sprawling. Watch. She grabbed a dish towel, flung it over herself like it was a mini dress, and sat down perfectly, knees together, ankles crossed. I sighed but stood up and tried again. I gently smoothed the skirt under me and sat carefully, copying her posture. She gave me a thumbs up. Better. Very tea party at Grandma's, but hey, it's a start. I slouched a little. This is a lot harder than it looks. Duh, she said, grabbing plates. I've worn, like, 200 dresses. Madison and Zoe and Emily? Same thing. You've got, what, 5 minutes on the scoreboard? You've got some serious catching up to do. I couldn't help smiling a little. So what's lesson 2? She smirked. How to walk in heels. But let's survive dinner first, Cinderella. The pasta boiled, the sauce bubbled, and for once, the kitchen felt a little less like someone else's house, and a little more like mine. We sat down at the small kitchen table with steaming plates of spaghetti and garlic bread. I tried to sit the way Shelby showed me, smoothing out the skirt, knees together, but I still felt kind of awkward, like I was balancing a stack of books on my head. Shelby handed me a fork, then raised one eyebrow dramatically. Alright! Lesson 3, Table Manners, Girl Edition. I groaned. Come on! I eat just fine. Oh, really? She said, twirling her spaghetti in perfect spirals. We're gonna pretend last week didn't happen when you inhaled mac and cheese so fast you nearly choked? I rolled my eyes and stabbed a meatball. That was survival. You made it spicy on purpose. She ignored me. Okay, rule number 1, no slurping noodles. I don't slurp, I said, offended. You do. And if you do that at Emily's party, someone will film it and it'll live forever on the internet. I froze mid-bite. Rule number 2, she continued, napkin on your lap. Always. I grabbed the napkin and laid it across my knees. The dress made it kind of tricky, like trying to cover a cloud with a paper towel. Rule number 3, she said, pointing her fork at me, don't lean your elbows on the table like a construction worker on lunch break. I sat up straighter and tried to chew without looking like I was overthinking every bite. Shelby watched me for a second, then nodded. Not bad. You're halfway to debutante status. What's a debutante? Don't worry about it, she said, grinning. Just keep chewing with your mouth closed and don't talk with food in it. I swallowed. Anything else? She gave me a mock serious look. Yes. If someone compliments your dress, say thank you. Don't say I know, or it has pockets, or my sister made me wear it. Just smile and thank them like you own it. I laughed. This is so much work. Shelby twirled her spaghetti again and said, welcome to girlhood, bro. We ate the rest of the meal with fewer lessons and more garlic bread. And even though I still felt awkward and the dress kept tickling my legs under the table, something about it didn't feel so scary anymore. It felt almost normal. After dinner, we cleaned up the kitchen together, me doing dishes, Shelby drying. She didn't boss me around like usual. She didn't even bring up the dress. It was like normal, only different. By the time we finished, the sun was just starting to dip behind the neighbor's house, casting orange light through the kitchen window. Shelby checked her phone and said, okay, time to turn back into a pumpkin. Parents will be home any minute. I nodded, already feeling my chest tighten a little. I didn't want to get caught. Not because I thought mom or her dad would be mad, at least not for dinner stuff, but the dress? That was different. That wasn't something I was ready to explain yet. Back in my room, I carefully stepped out of the blue dress and hung it on the back of my closet door. I ran my hands over the fabric once before slipping into my hoodie and jeans again. It felt like switching off a part of me I didn't know I had until today. A soft knock hit my door, and Shelby peeked in. Everything stashed? Yeah, I said. Back to civilian mode. She smiled. Good. Operation Secret Sparkle is complete. I laughed, and for a second, it didn't feel weird at all that my older stepsister had just helped me wear a dress for the first time. Shelby leaned against the doorframe and added, this stays between us, got it? No blabbing to mom. No telling your friends. Not unless you want to. I won't, I said. Promise. She gave me a little salute and said, cool. 'Cause if you rat me out, I'll post that baby picture of you with spaghetti on your face. You don't have that. She grinned. Try me. And then she was gone, just as the front door opened downstairs and mom's voice called out, we're home. I looked at the dress one more time. Our secret. For now. Chapter 4 Wondering. Recess on Tuesday felt the same as always, half the boys charging the field to play football, the other half hovering near the basketball court or sitting on the blacktop trading Pokémon cards. And then there was our corner of the playground, the tire swings, the mulch pit, and the crooked wooden bench that wobbled if more than 2 people sat on it. I was with Emily, Madison, Zoe, and Harper, like always. We were playing Find the Pebble, a game we made up where one person hides a rock in the mulch and the others have to find it while pretending the ground is lava. It sounds kind of dumb when you say it out loud, but when you're 10, it's genius level entertainment. Emily was crouched near the base of the slide, brushing mulch with her fingers. Her hair was up in a braid today, and she was wearing a denim overall dress over a striped long-sleeve shirt with pink Converse. And for some reason, I couldn't stop looking at the dress. It wasn't fancy or sparkly or anything. Just regular clothes. The kind of thing she wore all the time. The kind of thing all the girls wore. Madison had a floral skirt and sparkly shoes. Zoe had leggings with stars and a shirt with ruffles. Harper had on a jumper with a hoodie under it. And none of them looked nervous or weird. They just were. I sat cross-legged on the ground, pretending to dig around for the pebble, but my brain wasn't really in the game. I wondered, just quietly, in my own head, what it would feel like to wear a dress out here. Not in the attic. Not behind a closed door. But out here, under the sky, with people around. Would I feel embarrassed? Brave? Both? Would people laugh? Would they laugh? I didn't say any of that out loud, of course. Instead, I said, "Hey, what do you guys think they're serving for lunch today? Please not fish sticks again." "Chicken nuggets," Emily said confidently. I peeked at the menu on the way in. Zoe clapped. "Yes! I live for Nugget Day." Harper flopped down next to me. "As long as it's not mystery meat, I'm good." I laughed with them, shaking the mulch from my hands. I didn't bring up dresses. Not today. Not yet. The shrill sound of the recess whistle cut through the air, and all of us jumped a little before scrambling to our feet. "Line up!" Mrs. Garland called from across the yard. Like always, we split into 2 lines, boys on the left, girls on the right. I jogged toward the boy line, even though part of me always hated this part of the day. It was like a wall that got built between me and my friends every time the whistle blew. As I slid into place behind Ryan, I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, Noah," said Derek, a boy who never missed a chance to be annoying. "You sure you're in the right line? Thought you'd be over there with your girlfriends." I felt my ears go hot. "Knock it off," I said, keeping my eyes forward. "What?" he said, laughing. "You hang out with girls all day. Maybe you should wear a dress too." He said it like a joke, but something about it stung deep. Like he'd looked into my head and pulled out the one thing I hadn't told anyone, not even Emily. "Leave me alone," I muttered. Then, out of nowhere, he gave me a quick shove, just a bump to the shoulder, not hard enough to fall but enough to make me stumble. I didn't say anything. I didn't hit him back. I just stood there, swallowing the lump in my throat and blinking fast. Mrs. Garland didn't see. Nobody said anything. By the time we walked back into the building, the thought of the dress felt miles away. All the curiosity, the excitement, the weird but good feeling from yesterday, it all drained out of me like someone pulled a plug. And in its place was something heavier. Chapter 5, Pick Up and Panic. The final bell rang, and the usual stampede of backpacks and sneakers filled the hall. I was halfway to the buses when I heard a car horn honk twice, sharp and impatient, like someone was trying to win a NASCAR race in the school parking lot. I turned my head just in time to see a beat-up silver car jerking forward in the parent pickup line, then stopping abruptly, tires squealing just a little. Shelby leaned out the driver's side window like she was starring in some kind of action movie. "No! Let's go, Speedwalker! I don't have all day!" I groaned, shifting my backpack higher on my shoulders as I changed direction. A couple of kids stared. Of course! Because nothing says normal end to a school day like your eyeliner wearing high school stepsister picking you up like she's late to a rock concert. I slid into the passenger seat and barely had time to click my seatbelt before Shelby peeled out of the line like the car was on fire. "Maybe try not to kill us on school property?" I said, gripping the door handle like it owed me money. Shelby waved one hand like she was calming a ghost. "Please! I've only hit one mailbox. And that was totally the mailbox's fault." She swerved a little too hard taking a right, and I felt my stomach do a full roller coaster loop. "Remind me why I'm not on the bus again?" "Because," she said, glancing at me with a wicked grin, "we've got a shopping mission to complete. Remember? Tights? Shoes? Your transformation into fabulousness?" I stared out the window, chewing on the inside of my cheek. I wanted to tell her. Really, I did. I wanted to say that I changed my mind. That after what Derek said at recess, I didn't think I could go through with it. That maybe it was dumb to even try. But then I looked at her, buzzing with excitement, her smile like someone had told her she just won a lifetime supply of sarcasm, and the words got stuck. She was happy about this. Proud, even. So I said nothing. Instead, I just sighed and muttered, "I still can't believe you're dragging me to a thrift store for girls' shoes." "You'll thank me later," she said. "Besides, it's kinda cute watching you turn into my little sister." I rolled my eyes. "I'm not your sister." Shelby smirked without missing a beat. "That's not what I saw last night." I went silent, turning back to the window. The car hummed down the road. I didn't know what I was anymore. But I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not yet. The thrift store smelled like a weird mix of old furniture, laundry detergent, and something slightly dusty. Bells jingled as we walked in, and Shelby headed straight for the clothing racks like she had a map of the place in her head. I trailed behind her, hands shoved deep in my hoodie pockets, doing my best not to make eye contact with anyone. A mom with two toddlers was digging through a pile of jeans near the front, and an older couple wandered through the knickknacks section. None of them were looking at me. But it felt like they were. "We're starting here," Shelby said, stopping in front of a long row of colorful dresses. A crooked plastic sign above the rack read, "Girls, size 10 to 14. I froze. "Here?" "Yep." She started flipping through hangers like she was DJing a fashion remix. "We're looking for something cute. Not fancy, but fun. Sparkle potential, twirl factor, decent color." I glanced around again, heart thumping. There was a teenage girl with a phone in her hand a few aisles over. A man flipping through books. A cashier watching the front. Any one of them could look over and see me standing here, standing in front of dresses. What if someone from school came in? What if someone recognized me? "Shelby," I whispered, trying not to sound panicked. "What if someone sees me?" She barely glanced up. "Then they'll be jealous of your excellent taste. Help me look." "I don't know what I'm even looking for." "Something that doesn't make me gag," she said, holding up a stiff pink dress with a weird flower thing on the shoulder. "Like this. This is not cute. This is a cupcake from 2007. She shoved it back into the rack. I hovered close behind her, trying to shield myself from the rest of the store with my hoodie. She kept pulling out options, one with polka dots, one with ruffles, one that looked like it had been in a school play, and shaking her head. "Nope! Too frilly! Too churchy! Too grandma at a tea party! We need style, not stale!" I tried to laugh, but it came out thin and nervous. All I could think about was how loud the hangers sounded. How the dresses swayed on the rack like they were pointing fingers. I wasn't ready for this. And I didn't know if I ever would be. Shelby suddenly let out a soft ooh, and pulled a hanger from deep within the rack like it was some kind of hidden treasure. "This," she said, holding it up with both hands like she was revealing a sacred artifact, "might be it." The dress was light purple, almost lilac, with a bodice covered in tiny beads that caught the light when she turned it. The skirt was made of layers of soft tulle that flared out slightly, like it had just the right amount of twirl. She spun around and held it up in front of me. "Stand still!" I froze as she lined the hanger up with my shoulders, squinting and nodding like she was measuring me with her eyes. "Okay, not bad," she said. "Color works? Bodice might be a touch loose, but the shape is perfect, this has serious potential." I looked down at the dress, my heart doing a weird flip. It was beautiful, like the kind of thing you'd see in a catalog for spring parties. Not too loud. Not too sparkly. Just soft and real. And terrifying. "I'm not trying that on," I said quickly, stepping back. Shelby didn't even blink. "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not. Someone's gonna see. What if someone knocks on the door or hears?" "No." She gave me the look. The big sister look that said she'd already decided and my vote didn't matter. "No one's going to care. You'll be in a closed dressing room. And if anyone says anything, I'll handle it." "I can't." "You can," she interrupted. "It's literally just a piece of clothing. But you can't figure out if it works unless you try it on. You didn't come here just to look at dresses." I swallowed hard, my palms sweaty, every muscle in my body telling me to run. But instead, I followed her to the back of the store, where the dressing rooms were. Shelby handed me the hanger and crossed her arms. "I'll be right out here," she said. "Go! Trust me!" I took the dress, looked at the changing room door, and realized that somehow, despite everything in me screaming no, my hand was already reaching for the handle. The dressing room was small and smelled like old air freshener and faint laundry detergent. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood there for a moment, just staring at the dress in my hands. It was beautiful, more beautiful than I wanted to admit. The beaded bodice sparkled just a little under the fluorescent lights, and the tulle skirt looked soft and full, like something out of a storybook. My fingers trembled as I pulled my hoodie off and slipped out of my jeans and t-shirt. Then, slowly, so slowly, I lifted the dress over my head. The fabric slid down like water. The beaded bodice settled gently against my chest, and the skirt fanned out around my legs, brushing my knees and ankles with every tiny movement. I reached back, fumbling awkwardly with the zipper, and after a few tries, got it halfway up. The bodice was a little loose, like Shelby said, but it didn't fall off. The neckline sat just right, and the straps didn't dig into my shoulders. The skirt swished softly when I shifted my weight, and for a moment, I just stood there, breathing. It was like the world went quiet. The light purple color, the way the dress moved when I did, the gentle shimmer of the beads, it all felt surreal. I turned to the mirror, and for a second, I almost didn't recognize myself. I didn't look like a joke. I didn't look ridiculous. I just looked like me. A different kind of me. Amy I'd never seen before, but one that didn't feel wrong, and that scared me more than anything. Because in that tiny, dusty dressing room, with my heart pounding and my reflection staring back, I couldn't pretend anymore that this was just a joke. Or a dare. Or Shelby being Shelby. I liked how it felt. I looked down at the skirt and gave it a tiny twirl. The fabric lifted and floated, soft and silent, and I felt a flutter in my chest that I didn't have a name for. And then, just like that, the fear came rushing back. What if Mom saw me like this? What if anyone from school found out? What if this feeling, this weird, secret, fluttery thing, never went away? I looked at the door. Shelby was just outside, probably scrolling on her phone, waiting for my verdict. But I didn't know how to say what I was feeling. Not yet. Not even to her. I stood in front of the dressing room mirror for what felt like forever, twisting the hem of the skirt in my fingers. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. But then I heard Shelby's voice outside the door, casual and unbothered. "You fallen or something?" I swallowed hard. Then I turned the knob and slowly stepped out. Shelby looked up from her phone, and froze. For a full second, she didn't say anything. Just blinked. Her expression was unreadable, and my stomach twisted into knots. Then, she let out a breath and smiled. Like really smiled. "Okay," she said, standing up and putting a hand on her hip. "Wow! You look amazing!" I felt my face burn. "You're just saying that!" "No," she said firmly, walking a slow circle around me like a fashion critic. "I mean it! That color! Perfect! The way it moves? Total win! And that little twirl you just did before opening the door, don't think I didn't see it." I laughed, embarrassed. It just felt right. She stopped in front of me, her expression softening a little. "Because it is right. It fits you. You look comfortable. You look like you." That last part hit hard. More than I expected. I looked down at the dress again, my fingers brushing the smooth tulle at the hem. "You really think it's okay?" I asked. Shelby nodded. "I think it's better than okay. I think you found your dress." I smiled then, small, but real. "Now," she said, clapping her hands once. "Let's go find shoes before I start crying and ruin my eyeliner." Back inside the dressing room, I unzipped the dress slowly, as if taking it off too fast might break something. The fabric slipped from my shoulders and slid down into my arms like it didn't want to let go. I hung it carefully on the hook, smoothing the skirt and the beaded bodice like it deserved respect. Like it meant something. Then I pulled my t-shirt over my head and stepped back into my jeans. The moment I did, I felt it. Different. The denim was stiff, heavy. My hoodie was scratchy. The collar tugged at my neck in a way that felt weird, wrong, almost. It was like someone had flipped a switch and the light went out. These were the same clothes I wore every day. I'd never thought twice about them. But now they felt like a costume. Not because I didn't like being a boy, but because I'd just spent 5 minutes wearing something that felt like it fit in a way nothing else ever had. And going back felt smaller. More closed in. I looked at the dress one more time on the hook. Light purple, delicate, still softly glowing under the fluorescent lights. I wasn't sure what it all meant. But I knew one thing. Something inside me had changed. And I wasn't sure I could go back. Not all the way. After I changed back into my regular clothes, now suddenly feeling too stiff, too heavy, I brought the dress out to Shelby, who was waiting by the checkout counter like she owned the place. She took it from me carefully, her grin still in place. "We'll bag this up and save the twirls for tomorrow." Then she motioned toward the back wall, where rows of shoes were lined up on long, sagging shelves. "Now we find your shoes." We spent a good 15 minutes scanning the racks. Flats, sandals, ballet shoes with little bows, worn Mary Janes with scuffed toes. Shelby picked up pair after pair, comparing sizes, pressing the soles, checking the insides for wear. But one by one, she sighed and put them back. "Nope! Too small! These are wrecked! These smell like the bottom of a gym locker!" I waited, heart sinking. Finally, she straightened up and crossed her arms. "Okay! Nothing in your size! Thrift stores a bust on shoes!" I nodded, trying not to feel too disappointed. A tiny part of me had been hoping we'd get it all done in one go. That maybe, once everything was in place, I could just stop thinking so hard. Shelby gave me a quick side glance and smirked. "Don't worry! We're not done yet!" I blinked. "We're not?" "Nope," she said, already heading for the door. "We're going shoe shopping, for real! Big store! New shoes? I know just the place!" "You mean like now?" "Yep! Before we go home," she said over her shoulder. "It's part of the plan, remember? Tomorrow's training day! You'll need the full outfit! Can't learn to walk in heels if you don't have any!" As I followed her out of the store, dress tucked carefully into a paper bag in her arms, I felt a weird mix of nervous and excited buzz in my chest. Somehow, this was really happening. And I wasn't stopping it. Chapter 6: Shoes Inside Eyes. The big shoe store smelled like rubber soles and new cardboard, and the bright lights made everything feel twice as real. Shelby led the way straight to the kids' dress shoe section, flipping her sunglasses onto her head like she was about to direct a fashion show. "Okay," she said, scanning the rows. "We're going for simple, clean, and fabulous. No weird bows, no light-up soles. We want cute, not clown." After a few minutes of digging, she held up a pair of shiny white Mary Janes. They had a small buckle strap and just a little bit of a heel, not much, but enough that I immediately felt nervous. "Try these," she said, holding them out like an offering. I looked around. The store wasn't packed, but a few people were browsing nearby. A mom with a toddler, a couple of teenage girls, and an older woman looking at orthopedic shoes near the back. My palms were sweating again. "Do I have to?" I asked quietly. Shelby gave me a look. "Yes. How else are you gonna know if they fit? Come on! You're braver than this." I sat down and slowly slid off my sneakers. The Mary Janes felt cold against my feet at first, but once they were on, they fit surprisingly well. Snug, but not too tight. The insides were soft, and the buckle clicked into place with a small snap. I stood up. "Okay," Shelby said, stepping back. "Now walk." I took a few small steps forward. The heels clicked softly against the linoleum. The shoes felt strange, like I was suddenly aware of every step I took. My balance was different, but not bad. Kinda elegant. I glanced at Shelby. She nodded. "Nice! Keep your steps small. Don't stomp." I walked a little more, turning in a slow circle, starting to feel just the tiniest bit proud. Then I heard it! A loud gasp! I turned, and the older woman near the back of the store was staring at me like I'd just sprouted wings. "Oh my goodness," she said, her voice sharp. "What is this? That's a boy! Why are you putting him in girls' shoes?" The entire store seemed to go silent. Even the toddler stopped kicking his legs in the stroller. My heart slammed against my ribs. Shelby's expression turned cold. Calm. Dangerous. She stepped right in front of me and folded her arms. "He's trying on shoes," she said flatly. "Mind your own business." The woman clutched her purse like it might run away. "You people, always trying to turn boys into girls. It's disgusting." I wanted to melt into the floor. The Mary Janes suddenly felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. My ears were burning, my face was hot, and I could feel everyone looking. But Shelby didn't move. She just said, clearly and calmly, "He's not doing anything wrong, and if you have a problem with a kid finding out what makes them feel good in their own skin, then you're the one who needs help." The woman huffed and turned away, muttering to herself as she stormed toward the exit. As soon as the door shut behind her, Shelby turned to me and crouched slightly so we were eye level. "You okay?" I nodded. "Barely." "She was wrong," Shelby said. "Don't let people like that get to you. You were brave. Braver than most adults I know." I swallowed hard and looked down at the shoes. They were still white. Still shiny. Still mine. And I didn't want to take them off. After the woman left and the tension thinned out, Shelby handed me my sneakers. "Alright, Cinderella," she said softly. "Back to your normal kicks. I'll check us out." I sat down and changed quickly, the familiar weight and grip of my tennis shoes suddenly feeling bulky and dull. I placed the Mary Janes gently back in the box and handed them to Shelby. At the register, she paid with a crisp 20 and stuffed the box into one of those plastic bags that crinkle like thunder with every step. "Done?" I asked as we headed back toward the car. "Not yet," she said, unlocking the door. "We've got one more stop." I sighed and slid into the passenger seat. "Where now?" "Walmart," she said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "We need tights. And a couple pairs of girls' underwear." I nearly choked on my breath. "What? I don't need." She shot me a look. "Yes, you do? I can just wear regular ones," I muttered. "No one's gonna see." "It's not about who sees," she said, starting the car. "It's about the outfit. The feeling. The way you move. Trust me, it makes a difference. You're going to be wearing a dress, not gym shorts. The last thing you want is to feel like something's bunching or showing through. I slumped against the seat, face burning again. This is getting ridiculous. Shelby glanced at me. You don't have to do any of this, Noah. But if you're gonna go for it, then you should do it right. All or nothing. I stared out the window as the store signs and traffic lights blurred by. She wasn't pushing to be mean. She was just making sure I had everything I needed, even the things I didn't think I did. Even if it meant shopping for that. I didn't say anything else for the rest of the drive. But I didn't tell her to turn around either. Walmart was bright and loud, with carts rattling and fluorescent lights humming overhead. The moment we stepped inside, I felt like I was walking into a spotlight. Shelby didn't waste time. She headed straight for the girls' clothing section like she'd been on this mission before. The racks of pastel tops, glittery leggings, and packages of tights stretched out in neat little rows. "Okay," she said, scanning the shelves. "We want white or nude tights. Nothing too thick, or it'll mess with the flow of the skirt." I lingered behind her, glancing nervously around the aisle. There were moms, kids, a couple of teenagers further down by the graphic tees, but no one I knew. "Not yet." Shelby tossed a package of tights into the cart and moved onto the underwear aisle. I couldn't even bring myself to follow her at first. My face was burning, and I had that weird feeling again, like everyone was looking even though no one really was. I stepped closer and tried not to look at anything too directly, like maybe that would make me invisible. Shelby held up a pack of simple cotton briefs. "These'll do. No lace, no weird colors. Comfy and neutral. Perfect." "I can't believe I'm doing this," I muttered, just loud enough for her to hear. "Oh, relax," she said. "It's not like we're buying fairy wings and a tiara, yet." I almost smiled. Almost. But then I looked up. And froze. Down the aisle, no more than 20 feet away, stood Emily. She was holding a box of cereal in one hand and trailing behind her mom's cart. Her head turned, and for one awful, impossible second, our eyes met. She blinked. I panicked. Emily looked at the tights in the cart. Then at Shelby. Then back at me. And her eyebrows lifted. I wanted to disappear into the floor. Just vanish. Gone. But I couldn't move. She was walking toward us. And I had no idea what I was going to say. Emily stopped in front of us, eyebrows still raised, cereal box clutched in one hand. She looked at me. Then at the cart. Then at the package of tights in my hand. Then, because of course, she noticed the pack of girls' underwear Shelby was still holding. Her expression didn't change. Not angry. Not shocked. Just reading. Like she was putting puzzle pieces together. I was frozen, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear over it. Shelby, still browsing like nothing was happening, glanced over. "Hey," she said casually. "Can we help you?" Emily blinked at her, then turned back to me. "Noah?" My throat was too dry to answer. Shelby looked between us, then narrowed her eyes just a little. "Wait! Emily? The party girl?" Emily looked confused for a second. Yeah?" Shelby grinned, suddenly connecting all the dots. "Oh! Well, that explains it. No wonder he's going full fashion mission. You're adorable." Emily tilted her head, stunned into silence. I made a sound that was somewhere between a cough and a groan. "Shelby?" But she was on a roll. "I mean, I get it now, if I were 10 and had a best friend this cute, I'd probably try on a dress too." "Shelby?" I hissed. Emily's face turned bright pink, but she didn't back away. She didn't laugh, either. She just looked at me again. Slower this time. Softer. And said, "Is that what this is about? The contest?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Barely. And then I waited for her to say something, anything, that would undo me. Emily's eyes dropped to the tights again, then back up to me. "So," she said slowly, like she was still putting it together, "what dress did you decide to wear?" Her voice wasn't mean. Not teasing. Just curious. I felt my cheeks heat up again, but this time, I didn't look away. "It's light purple," I said quietly. "With a beaded top and tulle around the skirt." Emily raised her eyebrows slightly, then gave a tiny nod. "That sounds really pretty." She looked around me towards Shelby. "Did you borrow it from one of your cousins or something?" Before I could answer, Shelby held up a hand. "Oh no, honey. This one's custom selected. I bought it for him. Thrift store find of the week." Emily turned back to me, clearly surprised. "You bought it?" I nodded again, shoulders tight. "Yeah. Shelby found it. Said it looked right on me." Emily's face softened. "Wow! That's actually kind of cool." That made me blink. She wasn't making fun of me. She wasn't whispering behind her hand or backing away. She was smiling. "You're really gonna do the dress contest?" she asked. "I think so," I said. "If I don't chicken out." Emily smiled a little wider. "Well, I hope you don't. You might win." I stared at her. And for the first time since I'd stepped into that aisle, I didn't feel like running. Back in Shelby's car, the shopping bags sat in the back seat, tights, underwear, and the neatly boxed Mary Janes. The dress was already at home, hanging up like it was waiting for the big moment. Shelby pulled out of the Walmart parking lot, one hand on the wheel and the other rummaging through the radio presets like none of them were good enough. I sat quietly, still thinking about Emily. Her smile. The way she didn't freak out. The way she said I might actually win. That warm, floating feeling was just starting to settle in when Shelby said, "So, you know there's a price for all this, right?" My head snapped toward her. "What?" She grinned at me out of the corner of her eye. "Relax! I'm not making you pay me back in cash. It's a favor." I narrowed my eyes. "What kind of favor?" Shelby turned down the music, smirking like she'd been waiting to spring this on me. "Every year, Dad makes me go to the daddy-daughter dance at the rec center. It's always awkward, and the punch is terrible, and last year I had to dance with a second grader dressed like Elsa. I hate it." "Okay," I said cautiously. "Well," she continued, "now that you have a dress, and shoes, and all the parts of a perfect outfit, you can go instead of me this year." I stared at her. "You want me to go to a daddy-daughter dance? With your dad?" She grinned. "Yup. Dressed like." "Exactly. You're insane?" "Possibly," she said, turning onto our street. "But look at it this way, I trained you, I styled you, I basically created you. You'd be doing me a favor and giving my dad the wholesome bonding moment he dreams of. Win-win." I slumped in my seat. "You're evil. And you're lucky I'm your evil stepsister," she said. "Now start thinking of what you're gonna say when they call you Princess Noah on the dance floor." I groaned. But somewhere, buried under the embarrassment, I smiled too. Because weirdly, this kind of felt like family. By the time we pulled into the driveway, the sun was starting to dip behind the trees, and the house looked quiet, like it was holding its breath. Mom's car wasn't there yet, and neither was Shelby's dad's truck. We were still in the clear. Shelby turned off the engine and looked over at me. "Alright, soldier. Operation Stealth is still in effect." I raised an eyebrow. "Operation what?" She grinned. "Your mission, should you choose to accept it, sneak the bags inside, take them directly to my room, and hide them. Top closet shelf. You have 5 minutes before parental units arrive." I stared at her. "Why can't I just put them in my room?" "Because," she said, slinging her bag over her shoulder, "your mom actually cleans your room sometimes. Or drops off laundry. She opens doors. My dad hasn't stepped foot into my room in 2 years. You want secrecy? You use my bunker." It was hard to argue with that. We each grabbed a bag, tights and underwear in one, the shoes in another, and slipped inside the house like a pair of fashion-themed ninjas. Shelby led the way up the stairs, pausing only to peek out the front window like she was watching for enemy patrol. "My closet," she whispered. "Top shelf. Behind the shoe boxes." I climbed onto her desk chair, reached up, and wedged the bags into the space between a pair of tall boots and what looked like a dusty box of old yearbooks. Once everything was hidden, I climbed down and looked around her room. Posters of bands I'd never heard of lined the walls. There was a collection of mismatched mugs with makeup brushes sticking out of them, and a lava lamp that looked like it hadn't been turned on since the last time people said YOLO unironically. Shelby watched me from the doorway. "Don't get comfortable," she said, smirking. "Tomorrow, we go full training mode." I rolled my eyes. "What, like boot camp for dresses?" "Exactly," she said proudly. "Makeup drills at 9. Dress rehearsal at 10. Twirling at 11. I snorted. "You're really enjoying this, aren't you?" "You have no idea," she said, turning to head back downstairs. "Now let's act normal before the adults walk in and start asking why I'm suddenly nice to you." I followed her down, trying not to smile too much. Tomorrow is going to be weird. But maybe, not in a bad way. We were halfway down the stairs when the front door opened. "Hey!" Mom's voice rang out, followed by the thud of keys hitting the entryway table. "We're home!" Shelby looked at me, eyes wide with fake panic. "Quick! Be annoying! Fast! Before they get suspicious!" I blinked. "What?" She grinned wickedly. "You're not acting bratty enough. We've been getting along. That's not normal." Before I could respond, she shoved me lightly in the shoulder. "Hey!" I said, bumping her back. She grabbed a throw pillow from the couch and tossed it at my head. I ducked, then launched it right back at her. "Children," her dad said as he stepped in behind Mom, shaking his head with the sigh of a man who had already accepted defeat. "Can't leave you two alone for 5 hours without World War III breaking out." Mom raised an eyebrow, but she was smiling. "That bad, huh?" Shelby flopped dramatically onto the couch, groaning. "You have no idea. He tried to eat all the spaghetti. On purpose." I did not. She used too much sauce. It was measured. Like a chef. Mom shook her head and laughed as she walked into the kitchen. "Glad to see things are still normal." I glanced at Shelby out of the corner of my eye. She gave me the smallest, most knowing smile. "Yeah. Totally normal. Except now we had a secret. And tomorrow, everything was about to get a little less normal." Chapter 7 Quiet Before the Sparkle. I woke up the next morning tangled in my Spider-Man pajamas, one sleeve twisted halfway up my arm, the other wrapped around my blanket like I'd wrestled a villain in my sleep. The sunlight was already slipping through my window blinds, painting stripes across the floor. No school today. Teacher meetings or something. Normally, that would have meant video games and snacks until I forgot what time was. But not today. Today, I had training. The thought made my stomach flip. I yawned, stretched, and shuffled down the stairs, still half asleep, my socks sliding on the hardwood like I was trying out for a figure skating team. In the kitchen, I grabbed a bowl, poured in some cereal, just enough to avoid the "you waste food" speech, and added milk. Then I climbed onto one of the tall stools at the island and started munching while reading the back of the box like it was the morning news. A minute later, Mom walked in, already in her blazer, hair pinned up and coffee in hand. "Morning, sweetie," she said, kissing the top of my head like I was still 6. Behind her came Shelby's dad, juggling keys in a travel mug. "You guys good while we're out?" he asked. Shelby appeared behind them, already dressed, sipping something green from a glass and pretending to be a responsible person. "Totally fine," she said. "We'll survive." I glanced up from my cereal and tried to act innocent. "Don't set anything on fire," Mom said as she grabbed her purse. "No promises," Shelby muttered. "You're in charge," her dad said, pointing at her. Obviously. They were out the door a minute later. The lock clicked. The car started. And the house was ours. Shelby waited exactly 5 seconds, then turned to me with a slow, mischievous grin. "Alright, Spider Boy," she said, clapping her hands together. "Time to become Spider Princess." I stirred my cereal slowly, the little O's going soggy in the milk. Shelby leaned on the counter across from me, arms folded, still wearing that knowing grin like she'd been waiting all morning for this exact moment. I stared at my bowl and mumbled, "Do we really have to practice today?" She raised an eyebrow. That sounded suspiciously like doubt. "It's just," I sighed, pushing the cereal around with my spoon. "What if I can't pull it off? What if I mess up at the party and everyone laughs? Or worse, what if I get there and I don't want to do it anymore?" Shelby didn't answer right away. She walked around the island and pulled up a stool beside me. "Noah," she said, a little softer, "you're not signing a contract. You're not stuck. If you decide, on the day of the party, that you don't want to do this, we stop. No questions, no pressure." I looked at her. "Really? Really," she said. "But if you do want to do this, if you even think you might, you need to be ready. Not for them. For you." I stared down at my cereal. It was officially mush. "You felt good in the dress, right?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah." "And you didn't hate the shoes?" "No." "Then let's make sure, if you show up at that party, you do it feeling awesome. Not nervous and stiff and scared you'll trip." I looked at her again. She wasn't teasing me. Not even a little. I took a deep breath and pushed my bowl away. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." Shelby grinned. "That's the spirit! Now go upstairs and say goodbye to Peter Parker. You've got a tiara to earn." Upstairs, the light from the window filled Shelby's room, bright and golden like it was already part of the plan. She was waiting for me, sitting cross-legged on her bed, holding something draped over her arms. It wasn't a purple dress. It was something brighter. Bolder. Something. Yellow. Not just any yellow, either. It was a rich, sunflower yellow, warm and glowing like a perfect summer morning. The dress had puffed short sleeves, round and full like little balloons at the shoulders. Around the neckline, tiny pearl-like beads were sewn in a soft arc, sparkling gently in the light. A wide satin bow was centered at the waist, tied perfectly, not drooping or sagging. The skirt flowed outward in layers, heavy but elegant satin, with just enough structure to give it that full, twirl-worthy shape. Underneath, the tulle lining gave it lift and movement, like it was meant to spin through a ballroom, not a bedroom. And at the bottom, peeking out under the hem, were a pair of white Mary Jane shoes, bow-topped and perfectly polished. I stared at it, blinking. "Wait! That's not the dress we bought yesterday!" Shelby grinned like a magician pulling off a reveal. "Nope! This one's mine! Vintage Shelby! Wore it to a wedding when I was like, 9. Practically brand new!" I squinted at her. "So why am I wearing that one?" She stood up and handed it to me carefully, her voice suddenly less teasing. "Because if you're gonna wear the purple one on Saturday, you need to get used to how a fancy dress feels. Not just soft and comfy. This one's heavier. Fuller. More sparkle. If you can handle this one, you'll rock the purple one no problem." I took it slowly, the weight of the fabric surprising me. It was beautiful. And totally intimidating. But I didn't argue. Not this time. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." I carried the yellow dress into the bathroom like it was made of glass, the satin shimmered under the light, and the pearl beads around the collar caught tiny sparkles from the window. I closed the door behind me, my heart already thumping like it had something to prove. Getting out of my pajamas was easy. Standing there in my underwear, though, holding a ball gown, felt surreal. Like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Or maybe, somehow, I was stepping more into mine. I slid the dress over my head carefully, pulling the fabric down past my shoulders. It settled around me with a quiet swoosh, the satin smooth and cool against my skin. The sleeves puffed perfectly at the shoulders, and the bodice hugged my chest just a little, but not too tight. But when I reached behind me for the zipper, I couldn't do it. No matter how I twisted or turned, my fingers couldn't catch it. And the sash at the waist, just hanging there, definitely wasn't going to tie itself. I cracked the door and called, "Shelby?" She appeared a second later, eyes lighting up when she saw me in the dress. "Okay, yes," she said, stepping in. "That color is doing things. You look like sunshine." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop the small smile creeping across my face. "Can you help with the zipper?" I asked, turning around. "Of course!" She stepped closer and carefully pulled the zipper up the back of the bodice, the teeth clicking softly into place. "Not too tight?" "No," I said. "It's fine." She picked up the wide satin sash at my waist and tied it into a perfect bow behind me with practiced fingers. "There," she said. "Now you're official." I turned back to the mirror. And just stared. The skirt puffed out beautifully, full and round without being ridiculous. The neckline with the little pearl beads framed my face, and the color made me look like I was glowing. I looked like I belonged in a fairy tale. I looked like someone I didn't recognize, but wanted to know better. I was still staring at my reflection when Shelby crossed her arms behind me and raised an eyebrow in the mirror. "Alright," she said, her tone suddenly very official, "it's time for the ground rules." I turned slowly, the full skirt of the dress swishing gently around my legs. "Rules?" I asked, cautiously. "Yep," she said, stepping back and pacing the room like a drill sergeant in fuzzy socks. "As of now, you are my little sister. That means you're not just wearing the dress, you're living in it. No switching back until mom and dad get home. No complaining halfway through. No sulking in corners like you're being punished. You're in this." I hesitated. "What if someone comes over?" She waved her hand. "No one's coming. And if they do, we're not answering the door. This is a closed set training montage. No distractions." I looked down at myself again, fingers lightly brushing the satin bow at my waist. The fabric swayed every time I moved, catching the light. It still felt strange. But not as scary as it used to. Shelby stood in front of me now, hands on her hips. "We're gonna work on walking, posture, and maybe a little makeup. But you're gonna move like you belong in that dress, not like you're wearing it for a dare." I gave a tiny, half-nervous smile. "You've really thought this through, huh?" "Please," she said with a dramatic toss of her hair. "I've been waiting my whole life for a makeover montage. I just never thought I'd be doing it with you." I laughed, and she smiled back, softer this time. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. Not because I was totally sure, but because something inside me wanted to find out what would happen if I said yes. "Then let's begin," she said. "Sister." The stairs creaked a little as we went down, me holding the skirt in bunches to keep from tripping, Shelby grinning behind me like she was walking her masterpiece down a runway. At the bottom, I let the skirt fall and followed her into the kitchen. The satin swished softly with every step, and I could already feel the dress changing how I moved, lighter, slower, like I had to think about every step. We sat at the table, just like we had that morning. Except this time, I wasn't in Spider-Man pajamas. This time, I was in a yellow dress that sparkled around the collar, puffed at the sleeves, and made me feel like a totally different version of myself. Shelby kicked her feet up on the chair next to her and pulled the notepad out of the drawer like she was planning a secret mission. "Okay," she said, tapping her pen to the page. "Let's lay out the training schedule. Walking first, then sitting practice, you still default to slouching like a video game goblin, and after lunch, we tackle makeup. Sound good?" I shrugged. The dress shifted against my shoulders as I did, and I realized I couldn't even slouch the way I normally did. The bodice was too structured. It kind of made me sit straighter. "See?" she said, grinning. The dress is already fixing your posture. I rolled my eyes, but I smiled too. It was ridiculous. All of it. But also weirdly fun. We sat there for a minute in quiet, Shelby doodling in the margins of her schedule while I ran my fingers along the hem of the skirt. The soft tulle underneath tickled my knees every time I moved. "Feels weird, huh?" she said without looking up. "Yeah," I said. "But not bad." She nodded. "Get used to it. You've got at least 8 hours of being my little sister ahead of you." I gave her a sideways look. "You really like saying that, don't you?" She smirked. "I love it." And for the first time that day, sitting at the kitchen table in a yellow dress, I didn't feel nervous. I just felt ready. After a few minutes of quiet scribbling and me gently swaying in the chair just to feel the skirt move, Shelby sat up suddenly. "Okay," she said, reaching into her backpack, "time for a little sparkle." I blinked. "What now?" She pulled out a small zip-up pouch and set it on the table between us. It looked like something she might use for art supplies, except when she unzipped it, it clicked softly with the sound of tiny makeup tubes and compacts. "Lip gloss?" I asked, staring at the first thing she held up. "Not just lip gloss," she said dramatically. "Subtle lip gloss. Clear shimmer. Not sticky. Just enough to catch the light." She popped the cap and twisted the wand. "Pucker up." I gave her a look. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking?" she said, holding the wand steady. I sighed and leaned forward slightly. "Just don't make it weird." "No promises," she said, grinning, and gently dabbed the gloss across my lips. It felt cold at first, slick and smooth. I smacked my lips together instinctively. "See?" she said. "Boom! Natural glow! You're red carpet ready." I glanced at my reflection in the microwave door. It was barely visible, but somehow, I looked a little more awake. Like my face had been turned up a notch. Shelby pulled out a tiny tube next. "Okay, this is the only part I had to go a little out of my way for." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She waved the tube at me. "Last night? CVS run. Late. Sneaky. I had to act like I was buying this for a cousin or something." I stared at her. "You went to CVS last night? For me?" "Yeah, well," she said, shrugging like it was no big deal, "you're a lot paler than me. I didn't exactly have the right stuff sitting around. I couldn't let you look like a frosty ghost at your first makeover." She unscrewed the cap and dabbed a bit of concealer under my eyes and at the edge of my nose with a fingertip. It was weird. But it wasn't bad. "Trust me," she said. "This isn't about turning you into a new person. It's just polishing what's already working." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just nodded. And let her keep going. "Alright," Shelby said, closing the makeup pouch with a satisfying zip. "Now that you're moisturized, accessorized, and slightly sparkly, onto posture and movement." I groaned. "You're really taking this seriously?" "You're the one who said yes," she shot back. "And trust me, walking in a dress like that takes practice, that skirt has drag. You can't just stomp around like you're in gym class." She stood up and motioned for me to follow her into the living room, which she had conveniently cleared earlier, coffee table pushed aside, rug rolled up. "Runway's clear," she said. "Let's get started." I took a few steps, the heavy yellow skirt swishing around my legs. The tulle underneath puffed the whole thing outward, and I already felt myself overcompensating with my arms to keep balance. "Nope," Shelby said instantly. "Arms down. Small steps. You're not marching to battle." I tried again, this time keeping my elbows tucked in, my steps short and even. "Better," she said, nodding. "Now imagine you've got a teacup on your head and your teacher's watching." Why would I ever do that? Because that's how I learned. Old school pageant trick. If you can balance your body like that, you'll walk smoother. Pretend your spine's a string being pulled straight up. I gave her a look, but tried it anyway. I walked back and forth across the room, slowly getting used to how the dress flowed with each step. The swish of fabric, the weight of the bow, the slight click of the Mary Janes on the floor, it all created a rhythm I hadn't expected. And then she pointed to the couch. "Now sit," she said. "Like you're at a tea party and you actually care about the tablecloth." I rolled my eyes but obeyed, smoothing the skirt under me as I sat. It puffed around my legs, and I tucked my knees together like Shelby had shown me earlier. "Back straight," she said. "Ankles close. Now pick up your pretend teacup and don't spill it." I mimed sipping tea. Shelby smirked. "Perfect! You're already better than half the girls in my 5th grade dance class." I laughed, and realized, somewhere between the walking and sitting and pretending to drink invisible tea, I wasn't thinking about how weird it felt anymore. I was just doing it. Shelby disappeared into the kitchen, muttering something about proper training conditions, and I stayed on the couch, adjusting the skirt like she'd shown me. The puff of the yellow dress had settled around me like a golden cushion. A few minutes later, she returned, arms full of mismatched mugs, a tray of crackers, and a half-empty teapot she must have filled with lemonade. "I present to you," she declared, placing the tray on the coffee table with all the drama of a stage magician, Her Royal Highness's first official afternoon tea. I blinked. "Seriously?" "Seriously," she said, plopping down across from me. "You can't practice proper sitting if you don't know how to entertain. Every lady of class needs to know how to host a tea party. Or fake one, at least." She poured the lemonade into mugs like it was fine china, then added a few crackers onto napkins like they were finger sandwiches. "You're ridiculous," I said. "And you, my dear," she replied, "are underdressed for sarcasm." I bit back a smile as she handed me a mug. The gloss on my lips caught the light when I took a sip. We sat like that, me in a yellow dress, Shelby still barefoot in leggings and a hoodie, sipping lemonade from mugs and pretending they were delicate teacups. "This is kind of stupid," I said eventually. "Yup," she agreed. "But kind of fun." "Yup." And we sipped again. After a few crackers and one impromptu lesson in how to nod politely like you're agreeing with someone boring, I caught my reflection in the dark TV screen. The dress, the shoes, the faint shimmer on my face, it all looked like a dream version of me. Not exactly a different person. Just a more colorful one. And I didn't hate it. In fact, part of me liked it. A lot. Shelby drained the last of her lemonade, set her mug down like she was closing a deal, and stretched her arms over her head with a dramatic sigh. "Alright," she said, "tea time's over. Time to test the twirl factor." I blinked. "The what?" She stood, pulled out her phone, and started swiping through songs. "The twirl factor. Every good dress needs one. You can't just walk and sit. You've got to move. Especially if you're doing that dress contest. What if they want spins? Poses? You think Madison's not gonna twirl like her life depends on it?" I hadn't thought about that. "Of course you didn't. That's why you have me." She settled on a song, some upbeat pop thing I heard her blasting through the bathroom door on Saturday mornings, and turned the volume just loud enough to fill the room without rattling the windows. "Alright," she said, pointing at me. "Stand up." I did. The skirt swished around me like it was waiting for action. Shelby crossed her arms and nodded toward the middle of the room. "Now, spin." I hesitated. Then gave the dress a slow turn. The fabric lifted around me like a flower opening, soft and shimmering in a full, circular wave. I stopped too quickly, wobbling a little, and had to catch myself. Shelby winced. "Okay, good start. But don't fight it. Let the skirt do the work." We practiced for the next 10 minutes. Small spins. Larger twirls. Quick turns and graceful stops. Shelby showed me how to lead with my shoulders, how to let my arms follow the motion, how to land with my feet together like I meant it. "You're a natural," she said, grinning after I landed a pretty decent full spin without falling over. "You're just saying that." Nope. This dress was made to move. And you're making it work. I laughed, really laughed, spinning again just to feel the skirt float around me. And for a few minutes, there were no rules, no whispers in the back of my head, no boys' line or girls' line or awkward dressing room stares. Just music, motion, and yellow fabric spinning through a sunlit living room. The song faded, the last notes lingering in the air as I slowed to a stop, breathless and pink-cheeked from spinning. The skirt of the yellow dress settled around my legs again like it was catching its breath too. Shelby grabbed her water bottle and took a long sip, then she looked at me with that look again, the one she got right before she said something that would change everything. "Come on," she said. "Let's go outside." I blinked. "Outside?" She nodded toward the back door. "Just the yard. Just for a few minutes." I froze. The idea hit me like a cold splash of water. "Shelby," I said quietly, "I can't. What if someone sees?" "We have a 6-foot privacy fence," she said. "No one's seeing anything. And the neighbors are barely ever in their yards anyway." I looked toward the sliding glass door. The curtains were half closed, sunlight pouring through the slats and casting faint shadows on the floor. The backyard was so normal. So open. I wasn't ready. At least, I didn't think I was. Shelby must have seen the panic in my face. Her voice softened a little. "Hey! You don't have to. But I think you'd feel good if you did. Just 5 minutes. You're with me. No one's going to laugh. No one's going to say anything. It's just the sun, the breeze, and a little bit of fresh air." I hesitated. Then nodded. Slowly. "Okay," I whispered. She slid the door open, and I followed her out. The air was warm and smelled like grass and spring. The skirt of the dress caught a tiny breeze and fluttered gently against my legs. The fence wrapped around the yard like a protective wall, quiet and still. I stepped onto the patio, my Mary Janes clicking softly against the concrete. And just like that, I was outside. In a dress. As a girl. For the first time. I expected to feel terrified. But what I felt was light. Shelby sat on the steps and looked up at me with a small, proud smile. "Told you! It's not so scary." I didn't answer. I was too busy feeling the sun on my arms, the air around my knees, and the quietest, most unexpected sense of freedom I'd ever known. The sun had started to dip lower, softening the edges of the fence with gold as the shadows stretched across the yard. Shelby checked her phone and stood up. "Okay," she said, brushing her hands off on her leggings. "Parental units should be home soon. Let's get you out of Cinderella mode before they see you twirling around like a Disney extra." I stood too, brushing off the back of the yellow dress, the satin whispering against itself with every move. We slipped inside through the back door, the house still quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge and the tick of the living room clock. I headed for the stairs, heart starting to beat faster with every step. Halfway up, I heard it. The jingle of keys. The front doorknob turning. The sound of it unlocking. I froze. So did Shelby? The door swung open. And there stood my mom and stepdad, tired from work, bags in hand. They stopped in the doorway, and looked straight at me. In the dress. In the shoes. Lip gloss still shimmering faintly on my mouth. No one spoke. Not yet. Chapter 9 Found Out. The door had barely clicked open before my mom's eyes landed on me. Her face shifted instantly, from surprise to something sharper. Her mouth tightened. Her brow dropped. "What on earth, Noah?" she snapped. "Go to your room right now and take that off." Her voice hit me like a slap. I didn't wait to hear what my stepdad said. I didn't even look at Shelby. My heart had already leapt into my throat, pounding like it was trying to escape. I ran. Up the stairs, past the gallery wall of family photos, past the bathroom where I'd first put on the dress, past everything that had made the day feel safe. I slammed my bedroom door shut behind me, leaning against it as if I could lock the world out with my back. My breath came in short, panicked bursts. I reached for the sash first, tugging at the satin knot at my waist. My fingers fumbled, but I got it loose, let it fall to the floor in a pile of yellow ribbon. Then I reached behind me for the zipper. Nothing. I twisted. Reached. The zipper was stuck. Too high. Out of reach. I spun around, trying to angle my arm better, tugging and pulling with growing desperation. Still nothing. The dress clung to me like it didn't want to let go. No, 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 I whispered, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. Come off! The satin, so smooth and elegant before, now felt heavy. Too tight. Like it was closing in. I pulled the skirt up, trying to get the bodice over my head, but it caught at my shoulders. The neckline stretched too far. I couldn't see. I was trapped. Trapped in a dress I wasn't supposed to wear, in a moment I wasn't ready for. And downstairs, I could still hear voices. Muffled. Sharp. But I couldn't make out the words. All I could hear was my mom's voice echoing in my head. Take that off! I gave up on the zipper. I let the dress fall back into place, heavy and still, like it was aware now that it didn't belong. My hands were shaking as I looked down at the white Mary Janes, still shining, still innocent, still everything I wasn't supposed to have on. One by one, I stepped out of them. The soft click of the soles against the wood floor felt too loud in the silence of my room. I picked them up and shoved them under my bed, pushing them deep into the shadows with my heel until they were gone. Out of sight. Like it had never happened. Then I grabbed an old t-shirt from the laundry chair in the corner, one I'd outgrown but still kept around, and wiped my mouth with it. Hard. The lip gloss came off in one messy swipe, leaving my lips dry and the fabric stained faintly with shimmer. I threw the shirt into the corner and sat on the edge of my bed, chest tight, eyes stinging. The silence in the room felt heavy, like it knew what I'd just done, what I'd just been seen in. What I wasn't supposed to be. I sniffed and blinked hard, trying to fight it back. But the tears were close. Too close. And I didn't even know who I was crying for. The kid in the yellow dress? Or the boy who had just been told to take it off? I sat there for what felt like forever, just staring at the floor, my hands clutching the fabric of the dress like it might fall off me if I let go. Eventually, I stood, slowly, like my body weighed twice as much, and walked to the door. I cracked it open. The hallway was empty. No Shelby. No movement. Just the hum of tension hanging in the air like a held breath. Then I heard it. My mother's voice, sharp and angry, coming from downstairs. I won't do this, she snapped. I won't raise a boy who wears dresses. It's not right, Mark. He's 10 years old. What's he going to turn into? Her words hit me like ice water. Each syllable sharp. Final. But then, through the rising panic, came something I didn't expect. My stepdad's voice, calm, firm, and not backing down. He's a kid, Michelle. He's exploring. He's not hurting anyone. He's embarrassing himself. What happens if someone sees him like that? Then maybe they should learn to mind their own business, Mark replied. He's not breaking the law. He's not in trouble. He's figuring himself out. And that's what kids are supposed to do. Silence. For a second. Then my mom, quieter now, you really think it's okay? That this is normal? Another pause. And then, his voice, lower but steady, I think it's not our job to decide what's normal for him. It's our job to love him no matter what. I leaned against the doorframe, heart pounding. I didn't know what surprised me more. My mom's yelling. Or the fact that someone was finally speaking up for me. And meaning it. There was a soft knock, barely more than a tap, followed by the creak of the door opening wider. Shelby peeked in, her eyebrows already raised. Why are you still in the dress? I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Just a faint shake of my head. She stepped into the room and immediately saw the mess: the discarded shoes shoved under the bed, the stained t-shirt on the floor, my red face, and trembling hands. Then she spotted the back of the dress, zipper still fully closed, the bodice bunched awkwardly at the shoulders where I tried and failed to peel it off. "Oh," she said, putting it all together. "You couldn't get out?" I nodded once, a small, miserable motion. She sighed, not the annoyed kind, but the "I can't believe I didn't think of that" kind. "Well, that explains the panic attack." She stepped behind me without another word, lifted the back of the dress, and found the zipper. "There," she said, her fingers working quickly. "Hold still." The zipper slid down in one smooth motion, the tightness around my chest and shoulders instantly releasing. Then she untangled the last bit of the sleeves and gave the dress a gentle tug until it slipped down my arms. "Free," she announced with a little flourish. I stood there in silence, the dress pulling at my feet like a memory I wasn't ready to deal with yet. Shelby stepped around to face me, crossing her arms. "You heard them yelling?" she asked, voice soft. I nodded. "You heard what Dad said?" Another nod. Her face stayed neutral for a beat, then she rolled her eyes and muttered, "Finally! Took him long enough to say something useful." I almost smiled. "Almost." She nudged a pile of yellow satin with her toe. "You want me to put it away?" I hesitated. Then nodded again. "For now?" Once the dress was off, Shelby carefully picked it up from the floor, folded it over her arms, and left the room with a quiet "I'll be right back." She didn't make a joke this time. She didn't say anything snarky. Just gave me space. I stood there for a moment in my undershirt and socks, the air on my skin feeling cold where the dress had hugged me only minutes before. Then I walked over to my dresser and pulled out some regular clothes, loose jeans, a faded t-shirt with a video game logo on it. The fabric felt rougher than I remembered. The shirt hung off my shoulders like it didn't really belong to me anymore. I sat down on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor. Why was it so bad? That question wouldn't leave my head. It was just a dress. Just fabric. But when I wore it, I felt lighter. Softer. More, I didn't even know what the word was. Just more like me. And still, the second my mom saw me, everything went from warm and exciting to shameful and wrong. I glanced across the hall into Shelby's open room. Her closet doors were cracked open. I could see rows of colorful hangers, skirts, blouses, jeans, leggings, hoodies in pastel and black, and at least 4 dresses I recognized from old family photos. No one yelled at her for owning those. No one said she was doing something wrong. So why was it different for me? Why was it a problem just because I was a boy? I pulled my knees up to my chest and wrapped my arms around them, resting my chin there. I didn't have answers. But I was starting to realize something important. Maybe the rules weren't fair. And maybe I didn't want to follow them anymore. I was still sitting on my bed, arms wrapped around my knees, when the soft knock came at my door. I didn't answer. But the door opened anyway. My mom stepped in, her face tight. Not angry like before, just cold. Controlled. The kind of quiet that made my stomach twist harder than any yelling. She stood in the doorway for a moment, just looking at me. Then she said, "Why were you wearing that dress, Noah?" I swallowed hard. My mouth felt dry. "I was going to wear it to Emily's birthday party," I said quietly. "There's a best dress contest. It's for fun. I wasn't going to stay for the sleepover. Just the games and stuff." Her eyebrows pulled together slightly. "A dress contest?" I nodded. "She invited me. Shelby helped me find something. We were just practicing today. I didn't mean to make anyone mad." Mom stepped further into the room and sat down stiffly in my desk chair, arms crossed. "Noah," she said, "boys are not supposed to be wearing dresses." I looked up at her. "But why?" "Because it's not right," she said firmly. "There's a reason boys wear boys' clothes and girls wear girls' clothes. It's not just about fun or costumes. It's about being who you are. I didn't know what to say. I was being who I was. Wasn't I? She stood again and moved to my desk, picking up a notebook and tearing out a page. Then she reached into the drawer and grabbed a pencil, pressing them both into my hands. "Starting now, you're grounded," she said. "You are not going to that party." I stared at her, heart sinking. "But…" "No," she said, sharper now. "Saturday, you will stay in your room. No friends, no games, no TV. And before dinner tonight, I want you to write, 'I will dress like a boy, not a girl,' 50 times. My chest went tight. I looked down at the pencil in my hand, then back at her. "But it's just clothes," I said. "I wasn't hurting anyone." Her face didn't change. "It's not a debate, Noah. It's a decision." Then she turned and left, the door closing behind her with a soft, heavy click. I stared at the blank page in my lap. The pencil felt like a brick in my hand. And for the first time that day, I didn't feel light or curious or like someone becoming something new. I just felt small. I stared down at the blank paper, the lines waiting, empty, expectant. The pencil shook slightly in my hand. I told myself not to cry. Don't cry. Boys don't cry. I was a boy. My mom said so. She was right. Boys don't wear dresses. Boys don't twirl or sit with their knees together or put on lip gloss or spin around in yellow satin under the sun. That's what she said. That's the rule. That's the world. I gripped the pencil tighter. Just write it. Do it. Get it over with. I will dress like a boy, not a girl. I didn't even want to write it. It felt like swallowing something sharp. I told myself again. Don't cry. Don't cry. But the tears were already coming. Not big sobs, just a slow, stinging ache in the corners of my eyes, one blink away from spilling over. Don't cry. Not for this. It's just a dress. It's not who you are. Except it felt like who I was. Or who I wanted to be. Maybe. Sometimes. And that was the part that hurt the most. Because now I wasn't sure I could ever say that out loud again. One tear slipped down my cheek and hit the corner of the paper, leaving a small, dark spot. And then another. And another. And I sat there, pencil in hand, heart heavy in my chest, the words still unwritten. Eventually, the tears stopped. Not because I wasn't sad anymore, just because I ran out. My eyes hurt. My chest felt heavy. And I was too tired to do anything but stare at the paper in front of me. 50 times! I will dress like a boy, not a girl. I wrote it. Every line. Just like she told me to. It looked like someone else had written it, though. Like the pencil had moved on its own while I sat there and disappeared into myself. I didn't even remember getting up. Somehow I ended up in my pajamas, my Spider-Man ones. The same ones I always wore when I was little. The ones that used to make me feel brave. Now they just felt tight. Small. I wrapped myself in my blanket and curled up on my side. My bed was warm, but not in a good way. More like how it feels when you cry too hard and your body won't stop shaking, even after you've stopped making noise. Across the room, my desk sat in the dark. The paper was still there. Still filled with words I didn't believe. I told myself I did the right thing. That mom was right. That I was a boy, and that couldn't change, no matter how much I liked the dress. No matter how good it felt to twirl. I told myself not to cry again. Not to think about it anymore. And as the night closed in around me, I tried to believe it. But deep down, I knew I was lying. Chapter 10: The Right Clothes. I woke up with my blanket tangled around me like I'd been trying to disappear in my sleep. For a second, I didn't move. Everything felt quiet. Heavy. Like the air hadn't quite cleared from last night. Eventually, I pulled myself out of bed and grabbed some clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, a hoodie that used to be one of my favorites. It was all stuff I knew would look Normal. The kind of stuff no one would question. I didn't even think about the yellow dress. Or the purple one. I pretended I'd forgotten they ever existed. Downstairs, the smell of toast and coffee hit me as I walked into the kitchen. My mom stood at the counter, flipping through her phone with a mug in her hand. She looked up when I came in. Her eyes went up and down, taking in the hoodie, the jeans, the sneakers. Then she smiled, just a little. "Well," she said, "look at you! Dressed like a proper gentleman this morning." I didn't say anything. Just nodded and sat down at the table. The chair felt cold. I poured myself a bowl of cereal, even though I wasn't really hungry. The cereal floated in the milk like it was trying to be cheerful about things. I wasn't. A minute later, Mark, my stepdad, came down the stairs, keys in hand. "Morning," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I can drive you today if you want." I looked up from my cereal. "Where's Shelby?" I asked. "She left early," he said. "Had some project or extra credit thing." I blinked. "Left early? No goodbye? No check-in? Just gone?" I nodded again and went back to stirring my cereal. I didn't feel ready for school. I didn't feel ready for anything. But I was dressed like a proper gentleman. And apparently, that was all that mattered. We pulled out of the neighborhood and onto the main road. The morning was gray and quiet, like even the sky didn't want to talk. I stared out the window while Mark hummed along to the radio, some oldie station he always listened to. Neither of us said much. Then, instead of turning toward school, he slowed down and pulled into a McDonald's parking lot. I looked over, confused, as he slid the car into park. "We're not getting breakfast?" I asked, my voice small. He shook his head and turned off the radio. The quiet filled the space between us. "Nope," he said. "Just needed a minute." I felt my chest tighten. He turned in his seat and looked at me, not mad, not scolding. Just serious. "Noah," he said, "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Not what you think I want to hear. Not what your mom wants to hear." I nodded slowly, already bracing. "Do you actually want to wear a dress to that party?" My stomach dropped, my fingers curled into the sleeves of my hoodie. I wanted to say no. I wanted to laugh it off. I wanted to pretend it was all some misunderstanding. Instead, I heard myself say, quietly, "It's okay. I don't have to. I don't have to go. Or wear anything." Mark didn't look away. He just asked again. "No. Did you want to wear a dress to the party?" Something in the way he asked it, gentle, but clear, broke something open in me. And before I could stop myself, I nodded. "Yeah," I said. My voice cracked. I did. I wanted to try. I liked how it felt. I liked how I looked. I didn't think it was wrong until everyone else told me it was. Tears welled up again, and I wiped at my eyes with my sleeves before they could fall. Mark didn't say anything right away. He just reached over and pulled me into a hug. Not awkward. Not forced. Just strong and warm and real. "I hear you, kiddo," he said softly. "I really do." He let me go after a moment and sat back in his seat. "I'll talk to your mom," he said. "She needs time, but she also needs to understand what this means for you. And that you're not alone." I nodded again, breath shaky, the tightness in my chest finally starting to ease, just a little. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't just scared. I felt seen. The ride to school was quiet again after that. Not tense, just thoughtful. Mark didn't push me to talk anymore, and I didn't need him to. I was still trying to process what had just happened. His hug. His words. The fact that someone had finally said "I hear you" instead of "go change." When we pulled up to the curb, he gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze. "You're not alone, okay?" I nodded and opened the door. "Thanks," I said quietly, stepping out. The air was cooler than I expected. Crisp. Normal. Like the world hadn't changed, but I had. I headed toward the playground, the place I always went before the bell. I could already see the usual cluster of girls near the monkey bars: Emily, Mia, Kayla, Zoe. They were talking fast, laughing, huddled close like they always were. Before I could reach them, I felt a presence at my side. Emily! She matched my pace like it was nothing, her backpack bouncing a little with each step. "Okay, so," she whispered excitedly, "I told Zoe you might be wearing a dress to the party and she freaked out, in a good way, I mean, and I was gonna ask if you picked the purple one or something else because I think the purple would really pop, but also..." "Emily," I said. She stopped mid-sentence and looked at me. I didn't want to say it. I hated the way it felt in my throat. "I'm not going." Her face fell. "What? Why not?" I looked away, because I'm a boy, and my mom says boys shouldn't wear dresses. Emily stared at me for a second, like she couldn't quite process what I'd just said. "She told you that?" she asked softly. I nodded. "She found out? She was really mad. Said I wasn't allowed to go. I'm grounded on Saturday." Emily was quiet. Then she looked down at her shoes and said, "That's really unfair." I didn't answer. I didn't have the words. I just stared at the pavement and tried not to feel like something had been taken from me I wasn't sure I'd get back. The bell rang a few minutes later, and we all headed inside. But everything felt different now. Like the colors were just a little duller. And recess had lost a little of its magic. I walked into class alone. Normally, Emily and I would sit together, whispering about whatever we'd been talking about on the playground. But today, she trailed behind, probably still trying to figure out what to say. Or how to fix something that couldn't be fixed. I slid into my seat and stared at the top of my desk, tracing the grooves in the wood with my finger. The classroom buzzed around me, kids unpacking backpacks, zippers opening and closing, chairs scraping against the floor. It was all background noise. I felt like I was moving underwater. Ms. Rayburn stood at the front of the room, writing today's date on the board in neat block letters. Her voice, usually bright and chipper, started the lesson like it always did. "Alright, everyone, pencils out! We're going to pick up where we left off in our science unit, weather patterns and cloud types." I pulled out my notebook and a pencil, but I wasn't really listening. Cumulus, stratus, cirrus, words floated past me like clouds themselves, barely forming shapes I could recognize. I nodded when I was supposed to. I answered when I had to. But inside, I was still stuck on the playground. On Emily's face when I told her I wasn't going. On my mom's voice last night. On the way the dress had felt, and how quickly it had all been taken away. Ms. Rayburn moved to the projector screen. A photo of a storm cloud flashed on the board. "That's called a cumulonimbus," she said. "Storm cloud. Heavy, dark, full of energy." I stared at it. And for some reason, I understood it. As Ms. Rayburn moved on to the next slide, something about precipitation, my eyes drifted away from the board. I glanced around the room, trying to look like I was still paying attention. Emily sat 2 rows up, pencil in hand, doodling in the margin of her notebook. She was wearing a denim overall dress with yellow buttons and striped leggings underneath. Her hair was pulled back in a side braid, bouncing slightly every time she moved. Next to her, Nicole had on a pink skirt and a white hoodie. She was half listening, half whispering something to Mia, who giggled behind her hand. 2 seats over, Sarah, who everyone called a tomboy, sat with her feet up on the bar of her chair. She wore cargo pants and a hoodie with a skateboard brand across the front. She didn't wear skirts. She didn't do braids. She didn't care what anyone thought. And no one told her to dress differently. No one made her write sentences. The phrase flashed in my mind again. "I will dress like a boy, not a girl." 50 times! I looked down at my own clothes, hoodie, jeans, sneakers. All things that didn't make noise when I moved. All things that didn't sparkle or twirl or stand out. Just like I was supposed to. I gripped my pencil a little harder. Why is it okay for Sarah to wear boy clothes, I thought, but it's not okay for me to wear a dress? I blinked at the page in front of me. The words from the board barely registered. Something about weather fronts. But all I could think about was how unfair it all felt. Like the rules only went one way. And I was always the one caught under them. I will dress like a boy, not a girl. The sentence echoed in my mind again, looping like a song I couldn't turn off. But what did that even mean? What is dressing like a boy? I looked up at the front of the classroom again, but not at Ms. Rayburn this time. At the posters. One of them showed the first Thanksgiving, the usual cartoonish image of pilgrims and Native Americans smiling and eating corn. The boys in the picture wore old-timey pants, shirts with puffed sleeves, and hats with buckles. The girls? Long dresses, aprons, bonnets. Another poster nearby showed pioneers on the Oregon Trail. Again, the boys in pants, suspenders, boots. The girls in long skirts and blouses, always with their hair neatly tied back. That was the pattern, right? Pants equals boy. Dress equals girl. Simple. But then I saw another poster, half hidden behind the bookshelf in the corner. One of those laminated ancient civilizations ones, the kind you never really paid attention to. This one showed Roman life, gladiators, senators, families walking through marble courtyards. And the boys, grown men, even, were wearing togas. They looked like dresses. Draped fabric. Tied at the shoulder. Flowing all the way down. And no one in Rome had called those guys girly. I stared at that poster longer than I meant to. Because for the first time, something clicked. Maybe clothes didn't make someone a boy or a girl. Maybe we just decided they did. And maybe that decision could change. I blinked and looked back at my notebook, the sentence still written in my head. I will dress like a boy, not a girl. But now it sounded different. Not like a rule, more like a question. Noah? I blinked. Ms. Rayburn was looking straight at me, one hand still holding the dry erase marker, her other resting on her hip. The rest of the class had turned too, eyes landing on me like I'd just said something out loud. I hadn't. I just sat there, blinking at her, my mind still halfway in ancient Rome. I said, she repeated, can you tell us what type of cloud brings rain and thunderstorms? I looked down at my notebook. Empty. Just a few doodles in the margins and the word cumulonimbus half written and underlined twice. My face went hot. I had no idea. Ms. Rayburn gave a tight smile, the kind teachers give when they're disappointed but try not to make a big deal of it. Let's try to stay with us today, Noah, she said gently, then turned to another student. Kayla? Kayla answered immediately, and Ms. Rayburn nodded. That's right! Cumulonimbus clouds. I stared back down at my notebook, my ears burning. The classroom didn't laugh or anything, but I still felt it, that quiet shift when people notice you're not really there. When they wonder what's going on in your head. I picked up my pencil and started writing again. Stay with us. Pay attention. But my mind kept drifting back to the poster in the corner. The toga. The thought. What if I'm not wrong? I barely heard the next few questions Ms. Rayburn asked the class. My pencil moved automatically across the page, pretending to take notes, but I wasn't really writing anything that made sense. My mind kept rewinding. Back to yesterday. Back to Shelby dragging me through the thrift store, flipping through dresses with a level of focus that could scare paint off a wall. Back to that light purple dress, the beaded bodice, the soft netting on the skirt. The way she'd held it up against me and said, "This is it." Back to the shoe store. Those white Mary Janes. I'd been scared to try them on, even in that quiet corner of the store. But Shelby made it feel okay, like it was no big deal. Like it was normal. Until that lady. That old woman with the purse clutched too tightly and the words sharp like knives. People are trying to turn boys into girls these days. It's not right. I remembered freezing. Not because I believed her, but because for a split second, I thought maybe everyone else did. And then I remembered Shelby. The way she turned around, chin up, eyes locked on that woman with fire in them. She didn't yell. She didn't even raise her voice. She just looked that lady in the eye and said, "You don't know him. And you don't get to decide who he is." And that was it. The woman muttered something and walked off. But Shelby didn't let go of the shoes. She paid for them. She handed me the box, and she said, "You like them? That's enough." I stared down at my desk now, not seeing it. Just replaying that moment over and over. You like them? That's enough. What if it was? What if Shelby was right? What if the old lady, and my mom were wrong? Chapter 11, The Plan. The final bell rang, and just like that, the halls exploded with noise, lockers slamming, backpacks zipping, sneakers squeaking on tile. Everyone moving fast, free, like the day hadn't been heavy for them. I shuffled through the crowd, head down, sticking close to the wall. Outside, the pickup line was already a mess of cars and buses, teachers waving kids in every direction. I was headed toward the buses when I spotted it, Shelby's beat-up little car idling near the edge of the lot like it had snuck in without permission. She leaned halfway out the driver's side window when she saw me. "Yo! Get in, little outlaw!" I rolled my eyes but couldn't help a small smile as I jogged over and slid into the passenger seat. Before I even got the door closed, she was already pulling out, tires squeaking like she was auditioning for a street race. "You know," I said, clutching the armrest, "you could ease into the gas once in a while." "Where's the fun in that?" She grinned. As we turned onto the main road, she glanced over at me. "Alright! We're on! Operation Princess Part 2! You, me, and the yellow dress of destiny!" I stared ahead at the road. "You know I'm grounded, right?" "Only if they catch you," she said with a shrug. "We still got tomorrow! We'll keep going with the plan! Sneak you out if we have to! You're going to that party, Noah! In that dress! And you're going to win!" I didn't say anything at first. Then, quietly, I repeated the words I'd written over and over last night. "I will dress like a boy, not a girl." Shelby went quiet for a beat. No jokes! No sass! Then she looked over at me again, softer this time. "Who told you that?" "My mom," I said. "She made me write it. 50 times!" She didn't look away. She just said, "And do you believe that?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Shelby took the turn toward home, her expression serious, almost tender, a side of her I didn't always see. "You don't have to know the answer right now," she said softly. "But I need you to know, none of this changes who you are. It just helps you feel like you. And I'm here! I've got your back!" I stared out the window, the words settling like warm stones in my chest. We pulled into the driveway, quiet, the late afternoon light fading. To my surprise, the garage door was open. Mark was inside, holding something. As we stepped out, I saw a light blue dress, soft and simple, with a slight flare and a bow at the back. He lowered it toward me gently. "Saw this in the store," he said quietly. "Thought you might like another option." My heart thudded. I opened my mouth to say it was forbidden. I'd been grounded. My mom was furious, but before I could speak, Mark stepped closer. "Noah," he began, voice low and steady, "when I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut." I blinked. "Really?" He nodded, eyes distant. "Yeah. But my dad laughed. Said it was silly. Told me to grow up and be a man. I spent years trying to fit that mold. It got me nowhere. I was doing what was right, not what I wanted. I promised myself when Shelby was born that I'd never hold her back from being who she wanted to be." He handed me the dress. "Now that you're my son," he said, "I'm giving you the same opportunity. You don't have to wear it. You don't have to go to the party. But if you want to, if it means something to you, then I'll never stop you. Because you deserve the chance to figure out who you are. Not who someone told you to be." He paused a moment, just looking at me. Tears stung my eyes again, but this time they were different. They weren't about being forced into something. They were about something else. About someone understanding. About being seen. My voice cracked, but I managed, "Thank you." He nodded. "You're welcome. Take your time. I'm here when you're ready." I looked down at the light blue dress in my hands. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel like I was caught between right and wrong. I just felt lucky. I held the dress for a long time. The fabric was light in my hands, softer than I expected. Pale blue with a gentle shimmer, like morning sky just before the sun breaks through. I pressed it against my chest, then looked up at Mark, still standing patiently in the hallway. He gave me a small nod. "Go ahead. Try it on. I'll be right here." I walked slowly to the bathroom, shutting the door behind me with a quiet click. My hands were shaking a little as I pulled off my hoodie and jeans. It felt like shedding armor. I slipped the dress over my head. The fabric slid down easily, hugging my shoulders and falling gently into place. The skirt brushed against my knees. The neckline sat smooth and light. I reached back and fumbled with the zipper, then cracked the door. "Mark?" He appeared almost instantly, like he'd been waiting. "Need help?" I nodded. He zipped it the rest of the way, then stepped back. I turned to face the mirror. There I was. In the light blue dress. I didn't look like anyone else. I didn't look like Shelby. Or Emily. Or any of the girls at school. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I was trying to be someone else. I just felt like me. I opened the door slowly and stepped out into the hallway. Mark was still there. He looked at me. And smiled. "Yeah," he said. "That's you." I looked down at the skirt, then back up at him. "Mom's going to lose it." He nodded. "Maybe." Then, gently, "But you don't need to worry about that. I'll handle her. You just be you." And for the first time in a long while, I believed that might actually be enough. I stayed in the hallway, shifting from foot to foot, my fingers curled into the fabric of the dress. The house was quiet, just the distant hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of the floorboards under my feet. Then I heard the car door slam. My heart stopped. A few seconds later, the front door opened. And there she was. My mom! She stepped in, dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, and looked up. Right at me. In the dress. Her face changed in an instant, eyebrows pulling together, lips parting like she was about to yell. But before she could get a word out, Mark stepped in. "Michelle," he said quickly, calmly. "Let's talk. In our room." She blinked, eyes flicking between me and him. "Mark, what is he wearing?" "Come on," he said again, more firmly this time. "Please." He gently took her arm and guided her down the hallway, toward the bedroom. The door clicked shut behind them. I stood frozen in place. The silence felt thick, like the air was holding its breath right along with me. I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't know if it would help. All I knew was that my heart was pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. I stared down at the dress, this light, soft thing that felt like courage one minute and danger the next. I waited. Afraid. Hopeful. Still. I stood in the hallway, barely breathing. Every creak of the floor from behind that closed door felt like a countdown. I kept glancing at the clock, then at the dress I was wearing, then back down the hallway. Finally, the door opened. My mom stepped out first. Her face wasn't angry. It wasn't happy either. It was tired. Like she'd been wrestling something inside herself, and maybe it hadn't gone the way she wanted. Mark followed her out, calm but steady. He gave me a quick nod. A silent hang in there. My mom stopped a few feet away from me. She looked me over again, the dress, my bare legs, my uncertain expression. Then she sighed. "Okay," she said, slowly. "Here's the deal." I held my breath. "You can wear a dress," she said. "But just for the party. Just for one day." I blinked. "Just one?" She nodded. "That's the compromise. Saturday. You can dress up, take your pictures, do your contest. And then it's done. After that, we go back to normal." My heart jumped, but I couldn't tell if it was relief or sadness. One day felt like a win. And also, somehow, like not enough. But I nodded. "Okay." She looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. She just turned and walked to the kitchen. Mark stepped up next to me. "You alright?" I nodded again, slower this time. "Yeah. I think so." He gave my shoulder a squeeze. "One step at a time, kiddo." Chapter 12. Just one day. The next morning felt different. Not lighter, exactly. But not as heavy. I got dressed in my usual clothes, jeans, sneakers, a plain hoodie, but something inside me felt a little braver. A little more like I could look up instead of down. At breakfast, no one said much. My mom kept busy with her coffee, barely making eye contact. Mark gave me a quiet thumbs up when she wasn't looking, and that helped. It didn't fix everything, but it helped. At school, the air was cool and the sky was clear. I walked toward the playground like I always did, only this time, my heart didn't feel like it was trying to hide in my stomach. Emily spotted me before I even reached the gate. She ran up, her backpack bouncing on her shoulders, and grinned. "Hey!" she said, a little breathless. "You're early today." "I had to tell you something," I said. Her face rose just a little, like she was bracing for bad news again. "Yeah?" I smiled, "Just a little, just enough. I can go to the party." Her eyes lit up. "Wait, really?" I nodded. "My stepdad talked to my mom. I can come. And I can wear the dress." Emily squealed and threw her arms around me in a quick, excited hug. "I knew it," she said. "I knew she'd come around." I didn't say anything to that, because I wasn't sure why my mom agreed. Or if she'd really changed her mind. But I knew one thing. I had one day. One day to show up. One day to be exactly who I wanted to be. And I was going to make it count. I walked into the classroom still buzzing from my talk with Emily. The whole morning it felt like waking up from a bad dream and realizing you still had one good day ahead of you. One day to be yourself. One day to make it count. I slid into my seat near the window and pulled out my notebook, just like always. Ms. Rayburn was writing the morning instructions on the board, but I barely saw them. My head was spinning with thoughts, what shoes I'd wear, if Shelby would help with makeup again, whether the light purple dress I was still planning to wear to the party would still feel just as magical on Saturday as it had the other day. But I made sure none of it showed on my face. I kept my smile small. My eyes forward. Because if I got too excited, I might say something. And I couldn't. Not here. I couldn't let the whole class know I was going to a birthday party in a dress. I still remember the boy at the line who hit my shoulder just for hanging out with girls. If he knew about the dress, if any of them knew, I didn't want to think about what they'd say. So I sat still. Took deep breaths. Focused on the chalk squeaking against the board. Inside, I was electric. Outside, I was just Noah, just another boy in a hoodie, ready to learn about math and weather and sentence structure. But deep down, I was counting the hours until Saturday. When the bell rang for recess, I didn't just walk to the door, I practically bounced. I had to force myself not to run. The cool air hit my face as I stepped outside, and for once, it felt like everything in the world was exactly where it should be. I made a beeline for the picnic table, where Emily, Zoe, Mia, and Kayla were already sitting, kicking their legs and peeling open snacks. As soon as I sat down, I couldn't help it, the words tumbled out of me like marbles. I can come to the party. My stepdad talked to my mom and she said yes. All four girls lit up at once, talking over each other. No way! That's amazing! You're really gonna do it? What are you gonna wear? I grinned, feeling more like myself than I had all week. The light purple dress. The one Shelby found at the thrift store. It's got these sparkly beads and this tulle skirt that poofs out when I spin. Ooh, fancy, Mia said. And we still get to do your nails, right? Zoe asked, already digging through her backpack for a mini bottle of polish. I nodded. Yeah. I figured if I'm doing this, I might as well go all the way. Emily leaned in, elbows on the table, grinning. You're gonna look amazing! Oh! I forgot to tell you, my parents put up this huge above-ground pool in the backyard. Like, huge! We're gonna be swimming for hours! Wait, I blinked, we're swimming too? She nodded. Totally! After the games and the food! I got these new floats that look like pineapples! The other girls giggled and started talking over each other again, about party snacks, games, swimwear. And I sat there in the middle of it all, surrounded by voices and laughter and bright sunlight. For the first time, I didn't feel like the boy who didn't belong. I felt like one of them. And it felt really, really good. The whistle blew, and all of us scattered from our spots on the blacktop and benches, heading toward the line. I joined the rest of the class near the door, the girls lining up on one side, the boys on the other. It was automatic by now. I didn't even think about it most days. But today, my mind was still buzzing. I kept thinking about Emily's excited voice. The pool. The pineapple floats. Everyone swimming and splashing and laughing. And then it hit me. I might be the only one wearing swim trunks. My stomach gave a weird little twist. Emily and the other girls had been talking about swimsuits. About cute two-pieces and ruffles and colors that matched their towels. Not one of them had mentioned trunks. Of course they didn't, because they weren't planning on wearing them. I looked down at my sneakers, my fingers curling into the sides of my jeans. I was going to show up in a dress, with painted nails, maybe even makeup. And then what? Change into boy swim trunks? Would they notice? Would they laugh? Would I still feel like I belonged? The line started to move as our teacher opened the door, calling us back inside. I followed, silent now, the lightness from recess dimming just a little. It was just one more thing to think about. One more rule I hadn't realized I'd have to break, or follow. And suddenly, Saturday didn't feel so simple anymore. Back in the classroom, everything felt the same on the outside, desks in neat rows, pencils tapping, Ms. Rayburn reviewing spelling words on the board, but my brain was stuck somewhere else. I tried to focus on the lesson. I really did. But the words blurred in front of me. All I could think about was the pool. I pictured myself in that light purple dress, smiling and laughing with the other girls. And then, slipping away to change into swim trunks. Back into boy clothes. Back into something that didn't match how I felt. Would they notice the switch? Would they think it was weird? Would Emily? I glanced her way. She was scribbling something in her notebook, tongue slightly poking out of the side of her mouth like she always did when she concentrated. She looked happy. She looked like she belonged. What if I didn't? By math, my stomach had twisted into a knot so tight, I could barely sit still. By reading, I stopped raising my hand entirely. And by the end of the day, I'd barely said another word. When the bell finally rang, I gathered my things slowly, waiting for the classroom to clear out a little before I made my way to the door. Emily waved at me from across the room. "See you tomorrow!" she called, her braid swinging as she ran out with the others. I smiled weakly and waved back. But inside, I wasn't sure. Not about Saturday. Not about anything. The front door closed behind us with a soft click, the afternoon sun casting warm rectangles across the hallway floor. My heart was still pounding from school, the new worry about swimwear unsettled in my chest, until Shelby burst in like she'd just won the lottery. "All right," she said, arms flung wide. "Girl training, round 2. Come on." I blinked. "Right now?" "Yeah," she said, grinning like it was the greatest idea ever. "We've got 2 hours before you have to switch back to regular clothes. That's 2 hours of sitting practice, posture drills, and, most importantly, learning how to move within the skirt. We can't skip it." I swallowed. I wasn't ready, but she asked already, and I wanted this to go well, because she did too. "Okay," I said quietly, following her into the living room. "But, there's something else." She turned, eyebrow raised. "Yeah? Well, better to get it out now." I explained about the pool, about swimming at the party, and how I might be the only one in swim trunks, not a swimsuit. Shelby's face softened. She pulled me into a quick side hug before stepping back. "I'm sorry, Noah, I don't have anything that'll fit, and a dress underwater is not a great idea." I bit my lip, still feeling a knot in my stomach. She crouched in front of me. "Here's the thing, swim trunks are totally fine. They're comfy, practical, and no one expects you to do anything else. You'll be dry by the time the contest starts again anyway. Just focus on the dress part." My shoulders relaxed a little. "Okay," I said. "Okay." She stood and clapped her hands like the drill sergeant she secretly was. "All right, mission, perfect princess in training. Let's go!" Shelby disappeared into her room and came back a minute later holding the light purple dress like it was made of diamonds. "All right," she said, tossing it to me. "Get dressed. You know the drill." I headed to the bathroom and changed quickly. The fabric was familiar now, soft, floaty, comforting in a weird way I didn't totally understand. I stepped out, and Shelby zipped me up without a word. "Now," she said, first up sitting. She pointed to the dining chair, and I took a few steps over, trying to remember everything she taught me. "Slow it down," she reminded, "and smooth out the skirt before you sit. Tool likes to bunch." I gathered the skirt carefully, sat down, and placed my hands in my lap. "Better," she said, nodding. "You're remembering?" Next came walking, small steps, light posture, shoulders relaxed but not slouched. She had me pace from one end of the room to the other like a runway, correcting my stride just enough to make me think without feeling embarrassed. Then came the turns. "Oh no," I said, laughing nervously. "The spin?" She grinned. "The spin!" I twirled. The skirt lifted with me, the beads catching the light. I landed facing her, slightly wobbly but not terrible. Shelby actually clapped. "Look at you! That's a solid B+ twirl! Tomorrow, we hit A-level!" I rolled my eyes, but I was smiling. No pretending. Just learning how to move in a dress, with someone who believed I could. We kept practicing until the light in the living room started to shift, turning golden near the windows. Shelby checked the time on her phone and clicked her tongue. "All right, Cinderella," she said. "Clock's almost struck. Let's get you back into your other life before Mom walks in." I gave her a small nod and turned toward the hallway, but I hesitated for a second. "Hey," I said. "Thanks. For today." She looked at me, softer now, her usual sarcasm dialed way down. "Of course," she said. "You're doing awesome." She helped me unzip the back of the dress. I slipped out of it carefully, folded it like it was made of glass, and placed it back on the hanger she held out for me. In the bathroom, I changed back into my jeans and hoodie. The cotton felt rough and plain after the satin and tulle. I washed off the light layer of gloss she'd brushed on earlier and combed my fingers through my short, messy hair. No magic now. Just me. But different than before. Because now, I knew what the magic felt like. I stepped out just as Shelby was tucking the dress into the back of her closet, right behind her pile of jackets. We shared a look, nothing dramatic, just quiet understanding. Then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, we went downstairs and sat on the couch. When the front door opened a few minutes later and my mom called, "We're home," I was already flipping through TV channels, feet up, just another regular Thursday night kid. And as she looked at me a little longer than usual, I didn't flinch. Not this time. Chapter 13. One day left. Friday morning came with gray clouds and a breeze that tugged at my hoodie as I stepped outside. I stood on the front porch for a second, backpack slung over one shoulder, and just stared at the street. Tomorrow. Tomorrow is a party. Tomorrow is a dress. Tomorrow is everything. But today I just had to make it through one more normal school day. One more day of being just a boy. I climbed into the car as Mark gave me a quick nod from the driver's seat. "Morning, champ." "Morning," I muttered. He pulled out of the driveway and onto the main road, humming along to whatever old classic rock song was playing. I stared out the window, watching houses blur past, my fingers fiddling with the zipper on my jacket. It felt strange, this waiting. Like I was standing at the edge of something and all I could do was lean forward and hope I didn't fall. "You ready for tomorrow?" Mark asked suddenly, his eyes still on the road. I didn't answer right away. "Yeah," I said. "I think so." He glanced over, gave me a little smile. "Good. Just take it one step at a time." At school, I stepped out of the car, gave him a quiet bye, and joined the stream of students heading toward the building. Same backpack. Same hoodie. Same jeans. But inside, I wasn't the same kid who stood here on Monday. I was someone who had tried on something new. And tomorrow, I'd wear it in front of everyone who mattered. The school day moved slower than usual. Every subject felt like a hurdle I had to get through just to reach tomorrow. Math dragged. Reading felt like my eyes were moving in slow motion across the page. Even recess, the part of the day I usually loved, felt like it lasted both 10 seconds and 100 years. At lunch, I sat with Emily and the others at our usual spot. They were still buzzing about the party, what snacks Emily's mom was making, how big the pool actually was, whether they should paint Noah's nails pink or glitter blue. "Are you nervous?" Emily asked me suddenly, in between bites of her sandwich. I shrugged. "A little." She smiled. "You'll be great." I smiled back, but it felt tight. Because I wasn't just nervous about the dress, or the pool, or the party. I was nervous about after. After the games. After the contest. After the smiles and laughter. What would happen then? Would everything go back to normal? Would I? I barely touched my lunch. My appetite had turned into butterflies. Back in class, I sat quietly, head down, only half listening as Ms. Rayburn went over our spelling list. She didn't call on me, which was a relief. I don't think I could have spelled my own name right at that moment. I glanced at the clock again. 3 hours left. Then 2. Then 1. By the time the final bell rang, my backpack was already zipped and my leg was bouncing under the desk. It was almost time. Tomorrow was almost here. Shelby's car was waiting at the edge of the pickup line, her window rolled halfway down, sunglasses on like she was some kind of undercover agent. As soon as I climbed in, she grinned. "One more day," she said, putting the car in drive. "You ready, princess?" I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't hide the nervous smile creeping across my face. When we got home, she didn't waste time. The moment we were through the door, she was already pulling open the drawer in her dresser and taking out a small, folded plastic package. "Okay," she said, holding it up. "Big moment, tights." The packaging crinkled as she tore it open. Inside were 2 neatly rolled pairs of white tights, soft and slightly shiny. "They're tricky at first," she said, sitting on the edge of her bed and motioning for me to do the same. "But once you get the hang of it, they're not bad. These ones are stretchy, so they should fit fine." She handed me one pair. I looked at them like they might bite me. "They're like socks that got a promotion," she joked. That made me laugh. Then she walked me through it, one leg at a time, slow and careful so I wouldn't snag them. I sat down and tried to copy what she showed me, easing one foot in, then the other. Pulling them up slowly, gently, working past the knees, over my shorts. It took longer than I thought it would. By the time I stood up, the tights hugged my legs snugly and evenly, soft and smooth. Shelby stepped back and nodded. Not bad. No runs. No twists. No crying. I glanced down at myself, just tights for now, but somehow, even that made me feel like I'd stepped a little closer to the edge of something big. Tomorrow, it would all come together. But tonight, I just learned something new. And it didn't feel scary. Not anymore. Shelby crossed her arms, giving the tights one last approving glance. "Alright," she said, already moving toward her closet. "Let's finish the look." She opened the closet and carefully pulled out the dress, the light purple one with the beaded bodice and the soft tulle skirt. She held it up like it was a delicate piece of art, which, in a way, it was. "Step 2, she said, grinning. I reached out and took it from her, still in awe of how it shimmered slightly in the light. The tights made everything feel a little more real now, like this wasn't just pretend anymore. It was practice. Preparation. A promise. I stepped into the dress and pulled it up carefully, letting the soft fabric settle over the tights. Shelby helped me with the zipper again and tied the sash at the back just right. When I turned to look in the mirror, I actually gasped a little. The tights completed the outfit. They made the dress look even fuller, even softer. My legs looked longer somehow, more graceful, even though I was still me underneath it all. And then Shelby dropped the final touch into place, the white Mary Janes. She crouched down in front of me like I was Cinderella, holding one shoe, then the other, and slipping them on gently. "Stand up," she said. I did. Shelby stood beside me, smiling at my reflection like she knew what I was thinking. "Perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Shelby didn't say anything right away. She just looked at me, really looked at me, as I stood there in front of the mirror in the full outfit, the purple dress, the white tights, the little Mary Janes clicking softly against the hardwood floor. Her smile softened. And then she said, simply, "I'm proud of you." I turned, surprised by how gentle her voice had become. Shelby didn't usually do the soft thing. She was loud. Blunt. The kind of person who made jokes first and asked questions later. But not right now. Right now, she just looked at me like she saw something no one else ever had. "You look beautiful," she added. "I hope you see that." My throat tightened. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. Because I did see it. Maybe not the way other people would. But in that moment, in that room, in that dress, in those shoes, I felt something settle inside me. Something that had been floating for a long time. And I knew that no matter what happened tomorrow, this moment was real. And it was mine. Shelby gave me a few more seconds in front of the mirror, just enough to soak in the moment, not enough to get lost in it. Then she gave a small clap of her hands and stepped back. "Alright, princess," she said with a smirk. "Time to change back. We've got a big day tomorrow, and we need you fresh." I nodded, reluctantly stepping out of the mirror's glow. The hem of the dress swayed with every step, like it didn't want to go either. Shelby helped me unzip the back and untie the sash. I carefully slipped out of it, laying the dress gently back in its protective bag. The tights came off next, rolled down neatly like she'd shown me. By the time I was back in my jeans and hoodie, it felt like slipping into a disguise. Only this time, I knew it was a disguise. Shelby tucked everything away and zipped up the garment bag like she was locking up treasure. "Tomorrow," she said, turning to me, "you're going to shine so bright they'll need sunglasses." I laughed. But deep down, I hoped she was right. Because tomorrow, I'd be showing the world a version of myself I'd never shown before. And I wanted it to be real. Chapter 14: The Big Day. I woke up to the smell of pancakes. For a second, I forgot what day it was. My eyes blinked open slowly, sunlight slipping through the blinds and thin golden stripes across my blanket. Everything felt quiet. Calm. Then it hit me. Today. My heart started pounding. I sat up fast, still tangled in my blanket, and glanced at the clock. It was real. It was happening. I got dressed quickly, just in regular clothes for now, and padded downstairs in my socks, still rubbing sleep from my eyes. Mom was at the stove, flipping pancakes, her hair pulled back and a coffee mug in her other hand. "Morning," she said, glancing over her shoulder. Her voice was normal. Like any Saturday morning. "Morning," I said, sitting down at the kitchen table. A plate slid in front of me, 2 pancakes with syrup already drizzled, a side of sliced bananas. I picked up my fork but didn't start eating right away. She sat across from me, flipping through something on her phone. Neither of us said much. I didn't know if she remembered what today was. I didn't know if she wanted to. But I knew I did. And for now, that had to be enough. Just as I finished my first pancake, the back door creaked open and Mark stepped in, holding a toolbox in one hand and wiping his face with the sleeve of his hoodie. "Morning, kiddo," he said, giving me a quick nod before kissing Mom on the cheek. Flipping pancakes without burning the house down. Impressive! She rolled her eyes. "It's not rocket science." Before anyone could respond, Shelby clomped down the stairs 2 steps at a time and marched into the kitchen like she owned the entire day. "Pancakes!" she cheered, grabbing a plate before anyone could stop her. "Please tell me we have whipped cream." "There's strawberries in the fridge," Mom offered, not quite smiling. Shelby ignored the tension and sat next to me at the table, piling 3 pancakes onto her plate like she hadn't eaten in a week. I glanced at her. She didn't say anything, didn't need to. Just gave me a little nod, the kind that meant, "We're still on. You ready?" I nodded back, barely hiding my grin. Mark leaned against the counter with his coffee, watching the 3 of us at the table. "Big day," he said casually. Mom said nothing. But that was fine. Because Shelby was here. Mark was here. And in just a few hours, I'd be heading to the party, dressed as the version of myself I'd waited all week to become. Mark cleared his throat and glanced at the clock. "Michelle," he said, setting his mug down gently, "you still wanted to check out that new outlet mall today, right?" Mom blinked. I mentioned it, but..." "Great," he cut in, already moving toward the door. "Let's go now, beat the crowds!" She gave him a confused look. "Now? What's the rush?" He grabbed his keys off the hook and smiled. "Thought we could make a day of it. You and me. A little shopping, maybe lunch. Just us." She hesitated, eyes flicking between him and Shelby, then me. Mark gave her a reassuring look, the kind that said everything he hadn't said out loud. After a beat, she sighed and stood up. "Fine," she muttered. "But you're not dragging me to that awful sporting goods store again." "No promises," he grinned, holding the door open for her. As they left, Shelby leaned over and whispered, "You think he just saved your life?" I nodded, almost laughing. "A little bit." The door closed behind them, and for the first time that morning, it felt like the air had cleared. Shelby pushed her empty plate away and stood up, cracking her knuckles dramatically. "All right, little sister," she said, "let's get you ready to slay." We bolted up the stairs the second the front door clicked shut. Shelby moved like a storm, already opening drawers, unzipping the garment bag, and laying everything out on her bed like it was a red carpet fitting. "Okay," she said, pointing. "Underwear and tights first. You already know the drill." I nodded and grabbed the girly underwear and the familiar pair of white tights from the dresser. I sat down on the edge of her bed and slowly rolled them up my legs, careful not to twist them. They slid on smoother this time. Almost like my legs remembered. Shelby turned with the dress, holding it up like it was made of glass. I stood, arms out, and she slipped the light purple dress over my head. The soft tulle brushed against the tights with a quiet swish, and the beaded bodice settled neatly across my chest. She zipped the back and tied the sash into a perfect bow. When I turned to face the mirror, I barely recognized myself, but in the best way. "Alright," Shelby said, clapping her hands. "Nails next!" We sat on the floor by her low vanity table. She grabbed a pale lavender polish and unscrewed the cap, her brow furrowed with focus. "Try not to move," she said as she carefully painted each of my fingers. "You've got tiny nails. Like, really? You could model for Lego figures." I snorted but kept still. When she finished, I held my hands out to dry. The light shimmered across the polish. It matched the dress perfectly. "Okay," she said, standing and grabbing a small pouch of makeup. "We're keeping it light. Just enough to add a little sparkle." She brushed something across my cheeks, dabbed a bit of lip gloss on, and added the tiniest shimmer to my eyelids. When she stepped back, her expression softened again. "There," she said. "You look amazing." I turned to the mirror, and this time, I believed her. Shelby stepped back, gave me one last look from head to toe, and then turned toward the closet. "Alright," she said, voice a little softer now. "Final touch." She pulled out the small box with the white Mary Janes and opened it like it held something sacred. Maybe it did. She knelt in front of me and lifted one shoe, slipping it onto my right foot. Then the other. The buckle clicked shut with a tiny snap, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. The tights, the dress, the nails, the soft shimmer of makeup, all of it had led to this final step. The shoes that made the outfit real. Made me feel real. Shelby looked up at me and smiled. "There," she said. "Now you're ready." I stood slowly, the heels of the Mary Janes making the faintest little tap on the hardwood floor. I walked a few careful steps in them, turning once so the skirt spun just a little. I caught Shelby watching me. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't teasing. She looked proud. And in that moment, I felt proud too. Shelby gave me one last look, then stood and walked over to the window, parting the curtain just enough to peek outside. "Still got a few minutes," she said. "We don't want to be the first ones there. Too much spotlight." I nodded, barely hearing her. I was staring at the mirror again. The person staring back wasn't a stranger. But he wasn't just the same boy who had sat in this room earlier in the week, nervous and unsure and a little scared, either. He was someone braver now. Someone who'd walked through a storm of confusion and questions and come out still standing. The dress shimmered in the soft light. The tights hugged my legs like they belonged there. My hands, still slightly awkward, rested on the skirt, fingers careful not to smudge the pale purple polish. I didn't feel like I was playing pretend. I felt like I was finally doing something that made sense. Even if it didn't make sense to everyone else. "Hey," Shelby said from the doorway. I turned. "You good?" she asked. I took a breath. Then nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready." I turned away from the mirror, smoothing down the skirt one last time, but the movement wasn't as confident as before. Something had shifted. Not a big crack, just a flicker. A little worry, crawling in under all the layers of satin and shimmer. "What if," I said, then stopped. Shelby raised an eyebrow from where she was zipping her hoodie by the door. "What if what?" I looked down at the floor, at the toes of my Mary Janes. What if someone laughs? Or thinks I look stupid? The silence that followed was brief, but it was heavy. Shelby crossed the room and crouched in front of me again. "Noah," she said, voice low but steady. "You're braver than most adults I know." I didn't look up. She reached out and tapped a finger under my chin, lifting my face. "And let's be honest," she added with a half smile, "you look amazing. If anyone laughs, that's on them." I let out a breath. Not a full sigh. Just enough to loosen something in my chest. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." Shelby stood and slung her bag over one shoulder. "You're not alone," she said. "Not today." I took one more glance at myself in the mirror, tights, dress, hair, gloss. I still looked like me. But a version of me I hadn't been allowed to be until now. Still nervous. Still unsure. But ready. Chapter 15. Out the door. The doorknob felt cold in my hand. It clicked softly as I turned it, the front door swinging open with a creak that suddenly sounded way too loud. The afternoon light spilled in. And I hesitated. The wind brushed against my legs, tugging at the hem of my dress. The tights kept me warm, but it still felt like the air knew something was different. Like it was watching. I looked down at myself one more time, purple dress perfect, white tights smooth, Mary Jane's buckled tight. Everything was in place. Everything except my nerves. Shelby stepped past me onto the porch, locking the door behind us. "Come on," she said, like it was no big deal. "We're gonna be late." But I stayed frozen for a second, as darting across the street. What if the neighbors saw? What if Mrs. Crothers, the old lady who always watched the neighborhood from her living room recliner, saw me right now? She already threw a fit to our parents when Shelby wore a mini skirt. What would she do if she saw me like this? My fingers curled into the side of the dress. I felt like I was walking into a dream. Or a trap. Or both. "You good?" Shelby asked, turning back. I nodded, even though my throat felt tight. Then I stepped out. Onto the porch. Into the world. The pavement felt different beneath my shoes. The breeze picked at my skirt again. Somewhere a lawnmower buzzed, and a car door slammed 2 houses down. No one pointed. No one gasped. No one clutched their pearls. Not yet. And maybe they never would. I took another step. And then another. And then I kept walking. I climbed into the passenger seat carefully, smoothing the dress beneath me as Shelby slid into the driver's seat. She turned the key in the ignition, and the car rumbled to life. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back once, just once, at my house, sitting still and quiet under the afternoon sun. Then I turned to the window and stared out. The dress shifted gently against the seat as the car moved. We turned onto the main street. And there they were, people. Just going about their day. A man walking his dog. A woman jogging with headphones in. A dad lifting a toddler into a stroller. Cars passed us, headlights blinking even though it wasn't dark yet. No one looked at our car. No one stared. No one even glanced at the boy in the passenger seat wearing a purple dress with white tights and Mary Jane's. I watched them all go by, and something strange happened. I felt invisible. But not in a bad way. In a safe way. Like the world had room for me, even if it didn't know it had room for me yet. I turned slightly, just enough to see my reflection in the side mirror. Still me. Still real. Still here. Shelby reached over and turned up the radio a little, humming to some pop song I didn't know. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to brace for anything. I just let the car keep moving forward. Shelby pulled up to the curb in front of Emily's house and parked, drumming her fingers on the steering wheel. "This is it," she said with a little grin. "Big entrance time." I swallowed hard and nodded, my hand tightening around the strap of my small bag. I pushed the car door open and stepped out carefully. The skirt rustled softly as I moved, the air brushing against my tights. The neighborhood felt too quiet, too normal, like it didn't know what was happening. Or maybe, like it didn't care. I walked slowly up the sidewalk, my Mary Jane's clicking softly on the concrete. My heart thudded in my chest as I looked around. No one was outside, but I still felt like 100 eyes might be watching from behind the windows. For a second, I froze. A voice in my head whispered, "Go back! Run! Say it was a joke!" I turned slightly, my gaze drifting toward Shelby's car. But it was already pulling away. Too late now. I turned back, faced the front porch, and walked up the steps one by one. I raised my hand to press the doorbell. And the door flew open before I could even touch it. No! Emily nearly tackled me with a hug, throwing her arms around me so fast I had to grab the door frame just to stay upright. She stepped back, eyes wide, hands grabbing mine. "Oh my gosh," she said, looking me up and down. "You look amazing!" I blinked, stunned into silence. My heart was still hammering, but now for a whole new reason. Someone had seen me. And they smiled. Emily grabbed my hand and practically pulled me into the house, grinning like she couldn't wait another second to show me off. Inside, the front room was already buzzing with music and voices. Balloons were tied to chairs, streamers hung from the staircase, and the smell of grilled food wafted in from the backyard. I barely had time to take it in before a chorus of excited squeals met me at the base of the stairs. "No!" Zoe cried, bouncing on her toes. "You actually wore the dress! Look at you!" Mia added, clapping her hands. "You look so pretty!" Kayla just stared for a second before giving a slow, impressed nod. "That dress is everything!" I smiled, blushing so hard it probably matched the tint on my cheeks, but I couldn't stop grinning. Their words wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Then Emily tugged me toward the living room. "Come on, I want you to meet my cousins!" I followed her through the crowd and into the next room, where two kids stood by the gift table. "This is Rhea," Emily said, pointing to a girl with long braids and sparkly sandals. "She's from Ohio." "Hi," Rhea said with a friendly wave. "That dress is adorable." "Thanks," I managed, still not used to hearing it out loud. Emily turned to the boy beside her, who wore shorts and a collared shirt. "And that's Ryan! He's my cousin too." Ryan gave me a quick nod. "Hey! Hey!" I said back. I glanced down at his outfit. Just normal boy clothes. And for a split second, that voice came back again. "Told you! You're the only one!" But then Rhea leaned in closer. "You're braver than most boys I know." And suddenly, that voice didn't matter anymore. Because I wasn't the only one who noticed. And I wasn't the only one who understood. Emily looped her arm through mine and grinned. "Come on, everyone's outside! Mom says the food's almost ready!" I followed her out the sliding back door and into the backyard, which had been completely transformed. Tables covered in bright plastic tablecloths were scattered near the grill, and a giant above-ground pool shimmered in the sunlight like it was daring us to jump in. A speaker on the porch played upbeat music while a few girls danced barefoot in the grass. I felt the soft breeze lift the hem of my dress as we stepped onto the lawn. The tulle swished around my legs, the tights keeping everything comfortably in place. The Mary Janes tapped on the patio stones as I walked, but no one stared. No one whispered. It was just fun. Zoe and Mia came over again, dragging me toward the crafts table this time. "We're decorating mini purses," Mia said, holding up a tiny fabric handbag with glitter stickers already stuck on it. "You have to do one." "I can't believe they gave us actual fabric ones," Zoe added. "I thought it was gonna be paper." I laughed and followed them to the table, where markers, rhinestones, and little iron-on patches were scattered in plastic bins. I picked up a plain lavender purse, almost the same shade as my dress, and started slowly adding silver stars to the front. It was surprisingly calming. No one rushed me. No one made fun. Just quiet giggles, glue-covered fingertips, and sparkles catching in the sun. Emily sat next to me on the grass while we admired our freshly decorated mini purses. Mine sparkled a little too much, but I didn't mind. It matched the way I felt inside, bright and a little chaotic. "You did such a good job," Emily said, holding up her own purse to compare. "Yours actually looks like it could be sold in a store." I shrugged, a little bashful. "I just followed your lead." Before she could respond, her dad's voice boomed from the patio. "Alright, everyone! Time for a quick vote, best dress contest!" My heart jumped. That was it! The whole reason I was even here like this, the reason Shelby helped me! The reason I'd been wearing tights and Mary Janes and lip gloss! It was this moment! People started gathering in front of the porch as Emily's mom brought out a small whiteboard with everyone's names written on it. I stayed frozen where I was. "Come on," Emily said, tugging my hand. "You have to be in it!" I I didn't think they'd actually include me, I admitted. Why wouldn't they? She said. You're wearing a dress, aren't you? I nodded slowly, then stood. I could feel people glancing at me as I walked up to stand beside the other girls. But no one said anything mean. No one laughed. In fact, most of them were smiling. Emily's dad stood back with a small stack of note cards. Alright, write the name of the person you think has the best dress and drop it in the bowl. We'll announce the winner after cake. As everyone rushed to cast their votes, I looked around, at all the colors, ruffles, and sparkles of the other dresses. I wasn't sure if I'd win. But I knew I belonged in the contest. And for now? That was more than enough. As the last vote slipped into the big plastic bowl, Emily's mom clapped her hands together. Alright, everyone! You can go ahead and change into your swimsuits. The pool's ready! The group erupted in cheers, and kids scrambled toward the house with towels slung over their shoulders, already excited for cannonballs and splash fights. I stood there for a moment, frozen. That's when it hit me. I'd forgotten my bag. The one with my towel. The one with my change of clothes. The one with my swim trunks. I turned slowly to Emily, my voice catching in my throat. I forgot my stuff. She blinked. Wait, you didn't bring your swimsuit? I shook my head, the realization crashing in like cold water. I left everything at home. Emily bit her lip, then glanced toward the house. I think I might have something you could borrow. I waited. A little hopeful. Then she added, almost like she knew how I'd react, it's just a one piece. One of mine. My stomach dropped. A girl's swimsuit. A real one. Not just a dress. Not tights and flats. This would be different. Harder to explain. Harder to hide. She looked at me, her eyes gentle but steady. You don't have to. I just thought. I don't know. Maybe you'd want to swim with us. I stood there in the grass, the warm wind swirling around my dress, and suddenly all the noise, the laughing, the splashing, the music, felt far away. It was another choice. Another step. And I didn't know yet what I was going to do. Emily took my hand gently and led me through the back door, past the smell of chlorine and sunscreen, and up the stairs. We didn't talk much, not until she opened the door to her bedroom. I stepped inside and froze. It was very Emily. The walls were painted a soft pink, with framed posters of animated movies, girl bands, and glittery unicorns pinned in perfect symmetry. A canopy of gauzy fabric hung over her bed, where a mountain of pastel pillows and stuffed animals were stacked like clouds. There were shelves filled with books, little figurines, sparkly lip gloss tubes, and a makeup mirror with glowing bulbs. It smelled like cotton candy and bubblegum and something floral I couldn't quite name. It was the kind of room I used to imagine, not because I wanted it exactly, but because it felt like it belonged to someone who could be anything she wanted. And I'd never had a space like that. Emily walked over to her dresser, pulling open drawers, digging through layers of folded clothes. She didn't say much, just made little thoughtful hums as she searched. Then, she held something up. It was a one-piece swimsuit. Light blue with little white flowers and a frill across the chest. This one should fit you, she said quietly, not forcing it. I don't wear it much anymore. But it's clean. I stared at it. In this room full of pink and softness and certainty, that little swimsuit felt bigger than anything I had worn yet. And I still didn't know if I could. Emily stepped closer, still holding it out. You don't have to, she said again. But if you want to be out there with us, this is how. I looked at the swimsuit in Emily's hands for a long time. I didn't speak. My stomach was twisting itself into knots, and I could feel a slow pulse building in my ears. But somewhere under all of that, there was something else too. A small voice, softer than fear but steadier than doubt. You've come this far. I took a breath. Then another. Then I reached out, and took the swimsuit from her hands. Emily didn't say anything. She just nodded once, like she understood exactly how big that moment was. I clutched it gently, careful not to wrinkle the fabric, and made my way to the hallway bathroom. My dress brushed against my legs with each step, whispering a kind of encouragement. Inside, I closed the door and leaned back against it. The bathroom was quiet. The fan hummed overhead. I looked at myself in the mirror. At the lip gloss that had faded, the dress that sparkled, the tights that clung to my legs. Then I reached behind me and started to unzip. A few minutes later, I stood in front of the mirror again, only this time, in the swimsuit. It fit. Snug, soft, light. The frill across the chest fluttered slightly when I moved. I didn't know what I expected to feel, panic, embarrassment, maybe shame. But I didn't feel any of that. Just stillness. And under that stillness, a strange, quiet kind of peace. I opened the door, and took my first step out. Emily was waiting in the hallway, arms folded loosely, leaning against the wall with her shoulder. She straightened when I stepped out, and for a second, she just looked at me. No laughter. No teasing. Just a smile. A real one. "The blue suits you," she said softly. I felt the heat rise in my face, but I didn't look away. I was too focused on how not weird this moment felt. How it didn't feel like a joke or a dare. It just felt like me, being seen. I thought it'd feel worse, I admitted, tugging slightly at one of the straps. Emily shrugged. "I mean, it's a swimsuit. Everyone looks kind of awkward in one at first." That made me laugh. "Even you?" "Especially me," she said, grinning. We stood there for a second longer, not quite moving. Then she turned toward the stairs. "Come on! Everyone's already jumping in." I followed. Not quickly. But not hesitating, either. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was walking into something terrifying. I felt like I was walking towards something that might actually be fun. The sliding door opened with a soft schlick, and Emily stepped out first. I followed. The sun hit me instantly, bright and warm across my shoulders, the cool smell of pool water mixing with sunscreen and smoke from the grill. The sound of splashing and laughing filled the air. Zoe and Mia were already in the pool, throwing a beach ball back and forth. A few others were dangling their feet in, giggling and kicking up water. When I stepped outside, there was a moment, just a breath, where it felt like everything paused. And then, nothing. No screams. No gasps. No one pointing. Rhea gave me a thumbs up from the patio chair, sipping a soda through a curly straw. "That color looks good on you, Noah." I nodded, smiling nervously. Emily walked right up to the edge of the pool and jumped in with a splash, resurfacing with a grin. "Come on in. It's not cold, I promise." I walked over slowly and dipped one foot in. She was right, it wasn't cold. I stepped in further, the water climbing over my knees, the fabric of the swimsuit clinging gently to my skin. Every second felt more normal. More fun. Zoe swam over and splashed me lightly. "Took you long enough." I laughed and splashed her back. Within minutes, I was floating on a foam noodle, laughing, soaked, and weightless. Whatever worry had been sitting in my chest earlier was long gone, melted away by the warmth of the water and the kindness around me. After a while, Emily's dad called from the grill, "Food's ready." The pool emptied fast, like someone had hit the drain. Everyone grabbed towels and made their way toward the picnic tables, hungry and grinning. I climbed out slowly, water dripping from my hair and down my arms, the swimsuit clinging snugly, but comfortably. I looked around. And for the first time today, I wasn't wondering how I looked. I wasn't worrying about what anyone else thought. I was just me. And I was exactly where I belonged. Chapter 16 The Moment Between. I followed the others back toward the patio, squishing my wet feet in borrowed flip-flops that were too big, the swimsuit still dripping quietly under the towel wrapped around my shoulders. The air smelled like burgers and sweet corn. Someone had started a playlist on a Bluetooth speaker, one of those upbeat, summery mixes that made everything feel like it came straight from a movie. We took our places around the tables, plastic plates and paper napkins being passed back and forth. I ended up sitting between Zoe and Rhea, who were arguing, lightly, about the superior side dish, baked beans or mac and cheese. Zoe poked my arm. "No! Back me up! Beans or cheese?" "Oh!" I looked at both. "I mean, they both go with hot dogs." "Diplomatic," Rhea said with a nod. "I respect that." Across the table, Emily was laughing with her cousins, her damp hair pulled back into a messy ponytail. Her one piece was dark purple with neon pink trim, and she looked like she'd been born in the water, effortless and confident. It was strange, the quiet relief I felt sitting here. Even with wet hair sticking to my forehead. Even in a girl's swimsuit. I didn't feel like I was pretending anymore. I felt like someone who had chosen to be here. And everyone else had chosen to let me. I glanced around at the dresses now draped over chairs and railings, drying in the breeze. Bright colors and satin bows fluttering like party flags. Mine was still inside, hanging up, waiting for the moment that had started all of this. The best dress contest! I'd almost forgotten. Almost. As we finished eating, Emily's dad stood up from the grill, wiping his hands on a napkin and holding up the little whiteboard again. "Alright, party people," he said. "Hope you're full, because it's time to announce the winner of the best dress contest." Everyone cheered. My heart, though, it skipped. Not from nerves, exactly. But from something quieter. Hope. Emily's dad held the whiteboard like it was an Oscar envelope. Everyone hushed, a few leaning in dramatically, grinning with sticky fingers and half-eaten cupcakes in hand. "Alright," he said with a big, theatrical voice. "Before we get to the grand prize, best dress overall, we have to give a shout out to the best dressed boy." My stomach flipped. Just like that, the joy and peace I'd been holding on to started slipping. Best dressed boy? I wasn't wearing a boy's outfit. I wasn't sitting with the boys. I hadn't spent hours painting my nails and picking out shoes just to get nudged into a side category like I was still separate. Still different? Still other. I reached up and tugged lightly at the strap of the swimsuit. It had dried some, but it still clung tightly to me. For a second, I wanted to disappear into my towel, melt into the patio stones, and vanish. Was this it? A joke? Emily looked at me, her smile faltered just slightly, like she felt it too. Emily's dad paused, grinning at the group like he was holding back a secret. "And the award for best dressed boy goes to..." The pause was too long. I stared at the whiteboard. And then... "Ryan!" he announced, laughing. "Because he's literally the only boy here." Laughter erupted all around. Ryan, who had changed into dry clothes and was mid-sip of his soda, gave a mock bow from his seat. "I accept this high honor," he said, grinning. I blinked. Then slowly, quietly, I laughed too. Not because it was that funny, but because it wasn't about me. Not in the way I'd feared. I wasn't being pushed aside or pointed out. I hadn't been labeled. I was still in the running. Still one of them. And that felt incredible. The laughter faded, and Emily's dad cleared his throat again, tapping the whiteboard for dramatic effect. "Now," he said, "for the moment you've all been waiting for. The top 3 best dressed." He held up a hand, fingers outstretched. "Third place goes to..." A ripple of quiet settled again. "Layla, for that sparkly pink unicorn explosion she called a dress." Layla, one of Emily's younger cousins, gasped and clapped her hands. Her dress had layers of ruffles and glitter, and she wore matching light-up shoes. She beamed as everyone clapped. "Second place," Emily's dad went on, "goes to Zoe, for that floral number with the hidden pockets." Zoe shrieked and stood up, doing a little twirl as applause broke out again. And finally... He paused, and this time I could tell it was intentional. Drumroll, please." The kids banged the table, stomped their feet, clapped, anything that made noise. My heart was thudding. I didn't dare hope. I didn't want to. But I couldn't stop it either. Emily's dad smiled. "And the winner of the 2025 Best Dress contest is..." He flipped the whiteboard around with a flourish. "No." For half a second, I didn't breathe. It was my name. Spelled right. Right at the top. I looked around. Emily was grinning ear to ear. Zoe and Mia clapped like I'd just won a gold medal. Even Ryan gave me a little thumbs up. I stood, slowly. The sun was warm, and the pool glistened behind me, and for the first time all week. All month. Maybe ever. I wasn't the boy playing with the girls. I was just the kid in the best dress. And they all saw me. I was still standing when Emily rushed over and nearly tackled me for the second time that day. "You won!" she shouted, grabbing my hands and bouncing. "I told you that dress was amazing." Zoe and Mia were right behind her, whooping and clapping, and before I could say a word, I was surrounded in a blur of hugs, high fives, and excited laughter. "I knew you'd win," Mia said. "That dress looked like something from a fairy tale." "Okay, but the nails?" Zoe added. "The Polish matched. That's commitment." I was grinning so hard my cheeks hurt. For a moment, I let myself have it, completely. No second guessing. No fear about what came after. Just happiness. Pure and full. "Alright, champions," Emily's dad called from the patio, "you've got 1 hour left before the sleepover crew starts the next round. That means, pool time." Everyone cheered again. And this time, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my towel, flung it onto a chair, and sprinted toward the pool with the others. The water was warmer now, and the evening sun reflected off the surface like golden glitter. I jumped in with a splash that sent ripples across the whole backyard. Zoe swam over, laughing. "Winner gets the diving ring, right?" I nodded. "Better believe it." Emily handed me the bright blue ring and grinned. "You earned it." And for the rest of that hour, we swam, we laughed, we splashed until our fingers wrinkled, and we let the world be exactly what it was. Full of color. Full of joy. And for the first time, full of me, just as I was. Chapter 17 Michelle's Moment. Michelle stepped onto the sunlit patio behind Emily's house, clutching her purse tightly in one hand. She'd been dreading this all afternoon. Mark had been called into work unexpectedly, leaving her to pick up Noah. She took a breath and squared her shoulders. Just get it done! She scanned the yard through a curtain of laughter and splashing. A group of girls darted in and out of the above-ground pool, towels draped over lawn chairs. Colorful dresses were tossed across patio railings like flags. For a moment, she felt her heart clench, nostalgia and discomfort wrestling inside her. "Michelle!" Someone called, a familiar voice. Emily's dad stood near the grill, wiping his hands on a dish rag, smiling warmly. "Noah's right over there." Michelle followed his outstretched arm. There he was, Noah, hair still damp, swimsuit glistening with droplets, holding the diving ring, eyes bright, laugh unguarded as he splashed water at the girls around him. He looked happy. She didn't call out to him. Instead, she watched from the edge of the lawn. Memories flooded her, of him climbing the jungle gym as a toddler, baseball caps too big for his head, scraped knees from skateboard falls. He was supposed to stay a boy, her mind said. They told her boys didn't wear dresses. But there he was, not hiding. Not shrinking. Smiling, belonging. And wearing a dress that twirled around his legs like a fluttering banner. She felt the corners of her strict rules fray. A little voice inside whispered, "Maybe I'm the one who doesn't fit inside them anymore." He turned, spotted her standing at the edge, and paused for a heartbeat, just long enough for her to catch his eye. Their gazes met across the lawn. She gave him a small nod. Just a nod. No words. Just acknowledgement. As she watched him dive back into the water, splashes rising like half-smiles, Michelle realized something quiet, profound, and a little terrifying. She didn't want to take that dress away. Michelle didn't move from her spot on the edge of the patio. Her arms were crossed, but the tightness in her shoulders had loosened just slightly. She wasn't sure how to make sense of what she was watching. Then Emily's dad stepped up beside her, holding a soda in one hand and glancing out toward the pool. He didn't say anything for a moment, just watched the same scene she did, kids laughing, splashing, playing like the world hadn't changed at all. "I wasn't expecting this," he said finally, his voice low but even. "Emily told me she invited him, but I thought, well, I told her to make sure Noah knew there was going to be a boys' contest and a girls' one. Didn't want him to feel left out." Michelle didn't respond, as still on her son. He continued, but then he showed up. Like this. Relaxed. Comfortable. Just. In it. With the girls. A beat passed. He glanced sideways at her. "If I'd known how much he wanted to be part of it, how easy he made it look, I'd have told Emily to invite him to the sleepover part too. I didn't think it'd feel right, but watching him now." Michelle looked at him, surprised. He shrugged. "Kids got guts. And honestly, that kind of joy doesn't lie." She looked back toward Noah again. Still smiling. Still playing. Still completely himself. Emily's dad sipped his drink and gave Michelle a small, encouraging nod. "He's welcome to stay, if he wants. The girls would love to have him." Michelle didn't respond right away. She just took another look at her son, her child, laughing in the middle of it all like he belonged there, not pretending, not apologizing. Then, slowly, she stepped off the patio and walked toward the pool. The sound of water splashing softened as she approached. Noah must have noticed her coming, because he stopped mid-laugh, his expression freezing in place. His arms instinctively crossed over the front of the swimsuit, and he backed closer to the pool ladder, like he was ready to retreat into the water. She crouched beside the edge. Her voice was soft, but steady. "That's a cute swimsuit," she said. Noah blinked. He looked up at her, startled. "You're not mad?" "I didn't say that," she said, a smile tugging at one corner of her mouth. "We're going to have a very long talk tomorrow." Noah's shoulders slumped slightly. "Tomorrow?" Michelle nodded, brushing a damp strand of hair off his forehead. "Well, you're spending the night, aren't you?" His eyes widened. "You mean, I can stay? If you want to." Noah didn't say anything, he just nodded, so fast and so hard it almost made her laugh. "Alright," she said, standing again. "Then I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget to thank Emily's parents." As she walked back toward the patio, she didn't feel settled. Not yet. But for the first time, she wasn't dragging him back. She was letting him go. And maybe that was a start. As Michelle stepped back onto the patio, the sun slipping low behind the trees, she didn't look back. Noah did, though. He watched her retreating figure with wide eyes, the same towel still draped over his shoulders, water pooling around his feet. Then Emily grabbed his hand. "Come on," she whispered, smiling. "We got to find you some pajamas to wear." He hesitated only a second. Then he followed her inside. No hiding. No explaining. Just himself, among friends, with the night ahead. And for the first time, the world felt wide open.